Welcome inside the post-game tailgate with the Buckeye Huddle post-game tailgate presented by Tailgate USA. I'm Garrett Seawright. Ohio State wrapping up a big-time Big Ten opening victory over the Michigan State Spartans and really played pretty well there, especially in the second half. Going to bring in Mark Givler now to talk about the big-time victory. Still a few minutes left in the game, Mark, but it's completely decided. Ohio State's going to move to 4-0, and after it didn't get off to the start maybe that everybody expected, but all things considered, it's a pretty another solid performance by the Buckeyes.
Yeah, I mean, there's going to be things people are going to pick at, especially in that first half. But you know, you're winning a Big Ten road game by 4 touchdowns, and you know. These are the types of games you don't want to be playing in the fourth quarter if you don't have to, and they were able to get their guys out there to be in the fourth quarter, and so they took care of business, and I thought there was again there will be some things we'll kind of dissect and maybe pick at, but I thought it was a pretty good effort. The offense rolled again, the defense I thought took a couple drives to find their footing, but once they did, they really wiped out Michigan State's offense, forced several turnovers, and so I thought it was a good conference opener for them.
And really, I think maybe the average college football fan takes winning 1 conference games for granted, but 2 conference games on the road can be really, really difficult to pull off. And I think you can lose sight of that. For instance, Georgia's getting waxed tonight in a game that they were, a favorite in. Winning on the road in conference is really difficult, and Ohio State made it look pretty easy tonight.
Yeah, I think there are fan bases, and Ohio State's one of them, that are a little spoiled with the results over the years. They haven't had a lot of slip ups in conference. It's mainly been those big games that they've lost, to Michigan, obviously the last few years. But like, this is not a team that under Ryan Day has had these hiccup type games. We watched Ole Miss lose to Kentucky at home today as a 17-point favorite. We're watching Penn State right now. That was 14-7 with like 7 or 8 minutes left. I don't know if Penn State has held on there or not. As we're doing the show here,
21-7 now.
21, like Penn, like that. Yeah, they gave them Illinois really gave Penn State a scare tonight, and so we're seeing this around conference play throughout the country, and so you can't take these for granted. And again, we can sit here and we can pick at a few different things, but I thought it was a good conference opening road win.
Yeah, and we'll, over the course of the next hour or so, pick at some of those things that can be picked at as we bring Michael Pettit in here into the post-game tailgate presented by Tailgate USA. And Michael, we talked about just overall a 38-7 win, where if you can make a conference opener, but a conference opener on the road look as almost seamless as Ohio State did, I think 9 times out of 10 you got to take it, don't you, Michael?
I mean, yeah, I'll be honest. There's a lot of things I'm incredibly frustrated about, though, and I know it's just like the typical Ohio State, our fans, and unreasonable expectations, or at least that's what it seems like. But I'm seeing a lot of serious problems that are going to get exposed if they're not fixed.
Oh, and we'll chat about those as the show goes on. I know, hearing from other fans, the offensive line does not feel like a super strong point at this point, and the first half, frankly, from Will Howard was not great. Was not, I think you could maybe argue, good, but at the same time, and I tweeted this out, that if 17 for 25 for 182 yards is a bad first half, then maybe, just maybe, like, there is a little bit of light at the end of the tunnel, right, Mark?
Yeah, I think so. My issue tonight wasn't so much with Howard's play. He definitely got a little bit loose there in the first half. There's no question. Yeah. He could have easily had 2 turnovers. But I thought the linebacker play was left a lot to be desired tonight. Guys are kind of getting out of position. Unfortunately, the transition for Sonny Styles looks to have been a difficult one so far. He was beat on a few plays, both run and pass plays. But again, I thought the defense tightened up big time there in the second half. And it's been one of these things that we talked about this last week. Garrett, I don't think you guys were on last week. Yeah. We talked about this last week. It was one of my post-game observations is this team has a pretty big margin for error. And I think tonight was a microcosm of that maybe some other teams in the past didn't have in terms of margin for error. And that's a blessing and a curse. It's a blessing in that we can sit here and we can pick at 3 or 4 different things about tonight's game in a game that they won by 30 plus points on the road against a Big Ten opponent. But it's a curse in that you don't necessarily get scared. You don't get scared by these teams like maybe you should have been scared by these teams if you didn't have this margin for error. If a couple things had kind of went a little differently, maybe it would have been a wake up call in terms of but you sit here and it's a 31-point game and it's hard to, I guess it's hard to really nitpick things when you're winning by 31 points, even if there are things to nitpick.
No, I think that's 100% fair. It is now a final. Ohio State grabs a 38-7 win over Michigan State. So the final score is now solidified. 31-point win, which we will have plenty of time to talk about the nitpicks, the things that we liked, we didn't like. But it is now final, a 38-7 win for Ohio State. This is the Buckeye Huddle postgame tailgate presented by Tailgate USA. Get ready to elevate your game day with Tailgate USA. They bring the ultimate customizable tailgate experience right to you. You can forget the hassle. Their team handles every detail so you can focus on the fun. From the moment they deliver your fully stocked trailer or tent to the final cleanup after the big game, Tailgate USA has got you covered. They've got TVs, bathrooms, grills, seating, whatever you need. They've got everything for the ultimate tailgate. Bartenders, caterers, we got them too. Whether it's a corporate event or a day out with friends, your tailgate will be one for the books. Tailgate USA, by the way, in 16 states. So whether you're cheering on the Bucks in Columbus or you're going on the road, Tailgate USA can have you covered. They're booking fast for the 2024 season, so don't miss out. Visit tailgateusa.net to start planning your unforgettable next tailgate today. Let Tailgate USA handle your tailgate setup, whether you are at home or on the road. Again, tailgateusa.net. So there are things we don't like to talk about, or things, not things we don't like to talk about, but there are things that we maybe didn't like. As I'm Garrett C. Wright, joined with Michael Pettit and Mark Givler here in the post-game tailgate. And Michael, let's start with you. What were some of the things that stood out to you that were not maybe of the highest quality in Ohio State's Big Ten opening victory?
I don't think there's any reason to ever put 3 linebackers on the field. I'm just saying, especially when teams go 12 personnel, so 2 tight ends on the field, it's not necessary. First of all, I think we would all agree that the weak point of the 3 levels of defense is the linebackers. So you're taking off Jordan Hancock, one of the best players on the team, for a 3rd linebacker. And one of the other issues when Ohio State goes 3 linebackers is it's not just like you're subbing in a Sam linebacker for Hancock. It's an entire shuffle. So on the base defense, Cody Simon's the Mike, Sonny Styles is the Will. With these 3 linebacker sets that they use, Simon slides over to Will, Styles slides all the way out to Sam, and then Reese comes in at Mike. So it's this whole, cluster. They're shuffling around, and it's just not necessary. I mean, you see Hancock come and fill interior gaps when they have him on the field. You see him do it all, and you're taking him off the field for no reason, and then it leads to all these problems. That's why the linebacker play looked bad, because these guys are all of a sudden kind of playing different positions, and it's just not necessary. It limits what you can do coverage-wise as well. I mean, there's no reason when a team puts 2 tight ends into the game to bring a 3rd linebacker on the field. It's so unnecessary. And you know what? You can go back to Jim Knowles' first ever game as Ohio State's defensive coordinator. It was a night game against Notre Dame in 2022, season opener. He never brought a third linebacker on the field just because Notre Dame went with 2 tight ends. And Ohio State shut down their run game all night. It's just not necessary. I don't know what's making it happen. I don't know how any coach can see what they've seen on film this season when we've gone with 3 linebackers and think it makes sense to keep doing it. But I'm pretty frustrated about it, to be honest.
Mark, piggybacking off Michael's statements there, isn't the size of Sonny Styles supposed to be kind of that great equalizer where he can they only need to play with 2 linebackers on the field because he is He does bring the size, the skill, the speed that you would maybe want or need in a extra linebacker, and it allows you to play with a nickel defensive back.
Yeah, I mean, you would hope. I think it's been a tough transition for him. I thought he, and this has been a thing for me since he was in high school, and I'm not going to beat this dead horse too much tonight, but I don't view Sonny as a read and react football player. I view Sonny as an attacking, aggressive football player, which for me has always meant putting him on the edge. I think it's clear at this point that Arvell Reese is probably one of their two best linebackers, maybe their best linebacker at this point. And so I don't know how you kind of shuffle this around to get everyone, keep everyone happy, keep everyone on the field. But I would tend to agree with Michael. Their three linebacker looks, I didn't think did them any favors tonight. Cody Simon had a couple of nice plays, certainly. And, Styles had a sack, which I think, again, goes back to my point on a play where he was kind of able to just attack and he wasn't asked to sit there and kind of read and react. So I think they've got some personnel issues to sort of figure out there in that middle level of the defense and kind of settle in on who their best guys are. Are we putting all of our linebackers or guys who are in our linebacker room in the right positions to be successful? And so that's a thing. Yeah, I mean, I think that's a thing moving forward. They're going to continue to have to figure out. As far as the rest of the offense, like I thought the safeties were fantastic. I thought Davison Igmanosin, who is a guy I really, really like. I thought he had a tough night. But go to my 3 and out here. The Buckeye safeties tonight was, to me, what everyone kind of through the non-conference was. Well, we haven't really seen Caleb Downs, do a lot of stuff yet, and Caleb was all over the field tonight. Lathan Ransom had a forced fumble; he was all over the field as well. Those guys, it was kind of the running line from Jim Knowles was it's a safety-driven defense. Well, I thought the safeties drove play tonight for them, for their defense.
No, I agree with you that Caleb Downs, especially in the first half, was really all over the place, made some big plays at a time when Ohio State needed him. And I think that might be my biggest takeaway of the night was it sure felt like last week that, my gosh, can you get off the field when you need to? And then I think on the first drive of the game where Cody Simon gets the big lick on Aiden Childs to stop them on fourth down was sort of the kind of telltale sign of like, okay, maybe this was talked about during the week. It's like when push comes to shove, when you need to get off the field, we've got to get off the field. I think overall, I know that there are things to fix and things to talk about on the defensive side of the ball, but it sure felt like maybe just a little bit different than last week where they got turnovers. They got off the field on third down when they needed to, Michael. I think despite maybe schematically and personnel grouping, there are things to work on. It felt like it was maybe a step in the right direction tonight.
I mean, yeah, guys made plays, which is nice to see. I don't know. I just can't walk away from that game. I really feel like Michigan State kind of beat themselves on offense a lot. I don't know. I mean, again, it's just like, it's really frustrating to see. Like if I'm an offensive coordinator and I'm playing against Ohio State, I'm running 12 personnel on every play. Because if I know that they're going to go out there and put 3 linebackers in the field, why would I not do that? Why would I not want to go against that instead of having to go against, Jordan Hancock? But, the safeties are great. I do think, Ransom and Downs are arguably the 2 best players on the team. And it's good to, get them involved in the run game, which you can do when you are playing quarters coverage and stuff. And we saw a little bit of that tonight. So, yeah, that was nice to see. I don't know. I guess I'm just a little hung up on some of the schematic stuff, but no, there was definitely some playmaking out there at least.
No, I think it's important to be looking at that stuff because you do have to identify those things and get and improve upon them. And when you know who your best personnel is, for instance, on the offensive side of the ball, I think with the depth at wide receiver, it sure would be hard for me to. And I think G. Scott's a very good, Will Kazmarik's a very good tight end, but from an offensive standpoint, it sure feels like to me sometimes, Ohio State is better served with 4 wide receivers than 3 and a tight end. In a similar situation on the defensive side.
Yeah, I mean it's definitely their most talented room, top to bottom. And so you see guys like Brandon Ennis, you're like, boy, and even Ryan Day has even talked about this, wanting to get him more involved. It'll be interesting to see. I still don't know that we've seen, the full hand that Ohio State holds. I think we're still going to see a lot more open up here, especially as we get close to the Oregon game. But they're going multiple looks right now on offense. I don't have a huge problem with it, but I would like to see more 4 wide receiver looks for sure, just given the depth of that room and given the plays those guys can make in space. And I know, again, I think Brandon Inniss is kind of widely considered a good enough player to already be a starter here, and it's just finding opportunities for him. But look, the offense was super efficient again. There was a point, I don't know what the final total yardage was, but they had about 460 yards with like 8 to 10 minutes to go. And they'd already so it was another 500-yard offensive game, basically, where you didn't even have, with the backups playing a quarter. I mean, so I think the offense, again, they continue to make these big plays, and we're seeing on defense too. It's that margin for error I was talking about where, okay, we can nitpick this, but then they're going to make 3 40, 50-yard pass plays, or, we can nitpick the defense, but they force 3 turnovers. And so I think, again, finding the balancing act between, hey, yes, we have this explosive playmaking roster, but we also need to tighten up some of these things, I think is going to be the challenge for the coaching staff here the next, 2 months.
483 total yards of offense today in the 38-7 win. So knocking right at the door of 500 yards in the clock rules we've talked about before. It sure is difficult to hang 60 points and put 580 yards of total offense up on the scoreboard anymore. We will go to East Lansing momentarily once Ryan Day hits the podium. So we'll hear from the Ohio State head coach here on the Buckeye Huddle postgame tailgate presented by Tailgate USA. Michael Pettit joining us as well as Mark Givler. And Michael, I want to ask you, on the offensive side of the football, I know Michigan State defends the run pretty well, and I don't know that you can complain about 185 yards of total rushing, but did it at times it feel like Ohio State maybe abandoned the run game just a little bit tonight?
Yeah, at times it did. I mean, I thought, I didn't have many complaints about the offense, honestly. There was some things that could have been better. I actually, early on, I felt like the game plan was very east-west, trying to get guys in base as opposed to, running north and south. But I mean, overall, I thought the offensive line, and I didn't have much problem on the offensive side of the ball. Most of my frustrations really came with the defense.
All right, Ryan Day's at the podium. We'll hear from the Ohio State head coach.
How much we've trying to get some of those 2-minute drills on the first few games, but that middle 8 is important, and we felt like if we could get a stop there on the second down, we're going to call that timeout. We got to stop on that third down, called the timeout, and then it gave us an opportunity to take a shot at scoring. And I think we ended up getting the ball at the minus 40. I think if my memory's right on that, and then just some tremendous plays. The play by Jeremiah, and then we at least have a field goal there, so we got to play smart. And I thought Chip was aggressive, did a really good job of calling him. And Devin stepped up in a big way, came in for Will and delivered that throw. But I mean, what an unbelievable catch! I mean, I couldn't believe he caught it. Just a tremendous play. But then I thought we came out in the second half too, and continued that, because 28-7 at half, we wanted to get the thing to at least 35. And I think when you come out and you can get a 3-and-out, or I don't know if it was exactly a 3-and-out, and then get the ball back and score another touchdown. It just it flips the game, and I thought that was kind of where the game turned.
Bill Rabinowitz, Columbus Dispatch.
Ron, how do you explain the problems the defense had in the first half? They had averaging 10 yards a play well into the second quarter.
Yeah. When you look at the sum total of it all, 50 plays and 246 yards and 7 points, you come away and you say, geez, well, what a great performance. And certainly I thought we did a really good job of shutting them down, especially in the second half. But there's some things we got to look at in the film and figure out, kind of early on, like you said, some explosive plays in there that we got to clean up. I think that we were watching the film at halftime. We were close to getting to the quarterback with a couple things. We just needed to hang on coverage just a tick longer. But listen, they're a good team and they're well coached and they have good players too. But I thought we responded and made the changes appropriate, and in-game adjustments were solid.
Over to the right StevenMeansCleveland.com.
Ryan, two things. One, Tyleek being available but not necessarily playing today. What happened with there? And then also, what was the evaluation with Will at halftime?
Yep, Will's good to go. Just took a shot there, as you guys saw. Tyleek was available. He was going to be was available in an emergency role. If we felt like we needed him, we were going to put him in the game. He was cleared, but felt like one more week, almost like the Donovan situation. One more week of rest, would get him to 100%, which we felt like was the right thing to do. If we needed to, we could have put him in the game. We decided we didn't need him.
Tim May on 3.
Yeah, just a general overview of how you feel about this game. First road game, first Big Ten game, winning by 38-7. And then, of course, the turnovers y'all forced and the stoppage there on a fourth down when they were deep in your territory. Just how much did those loom huge, I guess?
Oh, yeah. I mean, the turnover battle was huge in this game. And, if we don't get those turnovers, maybe it's a different game for sure. But that's the game. And, we got to make sure we're winning the situations. So, we'll take a look at the film and figure out where it's at. But I thought the atmosphere was excellent early on. I thought, they came out and played really, really hard. I think, again, Jonathan's doing a really good job of, putting his culture into and his thumbprint on the program here. You can see it going, and got a lot of respect for him and his staff. But I thought our guys responded well and had some really good poise. That was something that we talked about coming into the game, is having poise in the noise. Getting down in there. Some of those fourth down conversions are pretty clutch.
Dylan Davis, Delaware Gazette.
You talk about that poise. Will started off really well and maybe kind of hit a little rough spot, had a couple of passes, and I'm sure he wants back one, obviously, that he wants back. What was your assessment of just the poise that he showed and kind of settled down on that following drive and answered back right back?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest one was the interception. He knows. I mean, that was not a good play, and it could have cost us. So something to learn from. You just had to move on from it and work through his progression there. But when you're going through, learning a new offense and everything's going to be some of these growing opportunities and learning from those opportunities. So, but overall, I thought he was solid. He was poised, made some big throws, and then a couple tough runs in there that you can see what a difference it makes when you have somebody who can run.
Over to the left, Larry Lage, Associated Press.
What has allowed Jeremiah to at least match the expectations that came in for him so far?
His work ethic. He does it every day in practice. I mean, he just doesn't say a word, but works his tail off. His discipline, his humility. He loves being a Buckeye. You can tell just with the way he works with his teammates. And he's coming out of his shell a little bit too, which is great to see. But I mean, the talent speaks for itself. I just am impressed with the discipline and the hard work and being able to step in at such a young age. The only way you do that is if you go in and put the work in. And he came in with that work ethic. Brian's certainly taken it from there, but this is a special young man.
Over to the right, Rob Aller, Columbus Dispatch.
Yeah, Ryan, we talk about Jeremiah Smith and how special he is, but Caleb Downs on defense was pretty incredible.
Yeah.
Pretty impressive. What's it like to have when things are a little clunky, you've got a guy that can make NFL plays on both sides of the ball?
Yeah, I thought Caleb played great tonight. Showed up in a big way on a bunch of different spots, and you can just see the acceleration, how fast he plays. And part of that is his athleticism, but another part is just the way he prepares. I mean, he prepares as hard as anybody on our team, and he was all over the place tonight, and he made a huge difference. And you said kind of turning that point where they were moving the ball some, and he got us going a little bit back there. And those are some big plays, and then I think it kind of felt like it turned the momentum for us on defense.
We're going to go 2 more questions for Coach, and then bring Jeremiah up. Spencer Holbrook, Letterman Road.
Ryan, what does it say? I know you've already touched on it a little bit. What does it say about Devin to be able to come in and deliver that kind of pass?
That was a clutch play. It was a clutch play. He put it there, and we told him, if you have the opportunity to throw it, rip it. Only throw it where the receiver can catch it. You had a couple different options there. If nothing was there, just throw it out of bounds and kick the field goal. And he did that. And he gave him a chance. And so it was good. It was good to see him make that play in that big spot.
Cameron T. Robinson, The Athletic.
Ryan, 2 things on Trey. I know he kind of limped off the field after he got hit there and fumbled. Well, didn't fumble, but just kind of how's he doing? And then 2, just how much growth have you seen from him specifically in the pass pro side of things?
He had some great pickups, huge pickups. The one on the touchdown to Jeremiah and the touchdown to Emeka. And there was a couple more. He did a really good job coming across. I got to watch the film, but there's like 3 of them in particular. He came across and picked up some corner fires and did a nice job. That was big. He's becoming that all-purpose back that we all know he can be. And again, I thought they ran hard. But yeah, I mean, I think where we are right now is we're making progress, but we got a long way to go, and I think that, our guys have that mindset. It was good to get this win on the road, first road win, good environment. But, we know that the challenges are bigger ahead. So we got to get on this film and stay hungry and keep the journey going. But, we're going to get back to work tomorrow. And we know that we got a really good Iowa team coming in here next week. They have had a week off. Just like always, they're a very, very good team. Play complementary football, and so we know we got a big challenge ahead of us. So we got to have a great week of practice.
Last question for Coach Steve Hellwagon, 24/7 Sports.
Yeah, Coach, just want to ask you, the play calling, particularly there, the end around to Jeremiah, just feels like when you guys get into a bit of a spot, you guys have a wrinkle. You have something that's coming. Is this Chip? Is this you collaborating? Just what do you say? That one seemed to catch them really flat-footed on that play.
Yeah, no, it's everybody on the staff. There's collaboration, but Chip's got a great feel for the game and calling the plays, and was always have some wrinkles in there. We got a few other ones that we held off on, but I think it's a balance of making sure that you have your fastballs where you're running downhill and you feel really good about them, but having enough curveballs that we can create explosive plays, and that's that balance you're constantly looking for. But we always want to try to find ways to get the ball to our playmakers in space, and we're going to keep trying to do that.
Coach, thank you very much.
All right, guys, thanks.
All right, folks, we're going to open up questions. We have Jeremiah Smith up here and also Emeka Abuka. We've got Joey Kaufman over here to the right, and then over to Andy. Joey.
Jeremiah, could you kind of walk us through your one-handed touchdown catch?
It was cover two. Corner pressed me. Devin just threw a great ball, and I had to make a play. That's all.
Was that your favorite, or the other
No, that
one
wasn't
your
my favorite. The one before is my favorite one today.
Over to the left, Tim May, Letterman Row.
Yeah, Jeremiah, was there a sense at that moment in the game, Devin comes in, that y'all need to do something special? I mean, what was the feel like on the field, with Will having to go out after getting hit? And then Emeka, your little outcut catch and turn up for the touchdown. Get to that in a second.
I mean, it wasn't I wouldn't say it was a different feel. I mean, we just had to go out there and continue playing football, even though Will went down. We all knew we just had to make a play.
But have Devin come in there and throw a strike like that.
Yeah.
What does that say about this?
Just say that he's ready whenever his number was called. So, I mean, that's what it shows to me.
Over to the right in the middle, Andy Backstrom, Letterman Row. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Little outcut and sideline touchdown.
Yeah, I mean, fourth down, first and foremost, the trust that our coaching staff has in us to be able to go for it on fourth down and not kick the field goal says a lot about this team. So we were happy to be able to, go out there as an offense and execute on fourth down. But, I mean, you guys can watch the replay, but Will put an amazing ball out there, really easy for me to catch and, turn up the sideline. There really wasn't too much to it. It was a great ball. I didn't have to do much.
And we've been joined by Jordan Hancock as well, Andy Backstrom, Letterman Row, and then Dan Holt.
Yeah, Mecca, what kind of poise did you see from Will today? Throws the interception, but bounces back, takes the hit, but bounces back. Just what did you see from kind of his resolve?
Yeah, I mean, we were kind of harping on it all week. When you go on the road, especially in the Big Ten, this is our first away game of the season. There's going to be adversity that strikes. It comes in different forms. It happened to be an interception early in the game, and Will was able to bounce back from it. I think this is something that we knew he would be able to do coming in, just being a fifth-year senior guy, having that experience under his belt, knowing that, mistakes don't define you, and coming back and making a statement later in the game.
Go ahead, Dan Holt, Letterman Row.
Mecca, you've been around a lot of great receivers here. What makes the guy sitting next to you special?
I think he has all the intangibles that you would want in a prototypical receiver. Obviously, he's tall, he's fast, he's strong, all these things, but just his ability to seek knowledge and want to be able to learn. He doesn't necessarily have to listen to everything that I say or that Coach Hart says, but he takes in all this knowledge and he applies it on the field. So as his knowledge grows and his game expands, he's really going to turn into something special. So Buckeye fans can be excited for his next few years.
And Jeremiah, LeBron James is tweeting about you tonight. A bunch of Buckeye greats are tweeting about you. Just what does that mean to you?
It means a lot. It just, growing up, looking at just watching LeBron and looking up to him and things that he was doing on the basketball side. So, I mean, it's pretty cool to me.
Over here, Bill Rabinowitz, Columbus Dispatch.
Jordan, a couple things. First, your assessment of the defensive struggles in the first half. What was responsible for that? And then specifically the play where you stripped the ball or knocked the ball free. Kind of what are you thinking as that play is unfolding?
First half, first couple possessions,
they were just moving the ball down the field a little bit, but we got a bend but don't break mindset, and we got to carry that into the game. And when 12 got the long pass, we work on that all week, just stripping the ball and making plays, and whatever the numbers call, you got to make that play. And we just work that all the time. So, yeah.
Cleveland.com.
Jordan, coach was saying that he felt like the defense was pretty close to getting to the quarterback a few times, and it seemed like the coverage just needed to be there, a touch longer. Do you guys feel like, even, looking back at it at halftime, do you feel like you guys are pretty close to, having everything click, especially early in games?
Yeah, for sure. We haven't played our best ball yet. We're working on it constantly, keep on watching the film, going against very good receivers in practice. They're making us better, so we're getting better each and every week.
Rob Aller, Columbus Dispatch.
Jordan, what's Caleb bring to the secondary and the defense? Is he just a stabilizing force, or what do you think?
Stabilizing force is a great way to put it, but also on-field coach. There's a lot of questions that I ask him, and I'm continue to grow under him. So he's just felt like a whole different coach on the field, and that's exactly what we need in our secondary.
All right, folks, we've been joined also by Will Howard here. I'm going to let Jeremiah and Emeka go. We're going to move Cody Simon up here as well. I'm not sure we're going to get anyone else. Over here, Jeff Gilbert, Press Pros.
Will, the whole thing at the end of the half, Jeremiah makes the great catch from you, then the one from Devin. Just what was that like on the sideline to see that and see that happen?
I think that was the game right there, man. Like that series, taking the ball down, and we talk about the middle eight all the time, winning the middle eight. And that's, the last 4 minutes of the first half and the first 4 of the second half. And we exemplified that on offense. And I thought Devin did an unbelievable job of being ready when his number was called, man. That's competitive excellence. We talk about that all the time. And I really think that throw and that catch right there, that those two made, like, that really sealed the game. And I think they kind of put him out of it, and I think, I'm just so proud of Devin for stepping in and being ready. And you never know what's going to happen. And I go down with, I just got the wind knocked out of me, and, you got to come out for a play. So it is what it is. And I mean, he went out in there and made the play, and it was big time.
Over to the left, Austin Ward, the podcast.
Well, no, you were able to go right back in there. You said it was just the wind knocked out. You feel okay now? How do you think you're going to feel tomorrow?
Yeah, I might be a little sore tomorrow, but it's all good. It's football, man. It's part of it.
Over to the right, Cameron T. Robinson, The Athletic.
Cody, two things for you. Just kind of what was your read on that fourth down QB sneak stop, and then what do you think changed for the defense after that really first quarter and a half that helped you guys to kind of lock them down the rest of the way?
Yeah, we saw a little bit of how they would try to sneak some quarterback sneaks in if it was really fourth and short, third and short. So we had a quick adjustment for it, and everyone did their job, and it was a great play. So I'm just proud of my guys for stepping up and making plays, and allowing me to make plays too. And then after that first quarter and a half, we wanted to rebite on just more aggressiveness, more violent, more assertive play. And I think especially the second half, we came out with intent. So I'm just proud of our guys because it's not easy to come out here. Big Ten ball is not easy. So we came out here try to as Will said, the middle eight was important. So we tried to come out violent and win that first 4 minutes second half.
Andy Anders, 11 Warriors.
Yeah. Well, what's giving this team the success it's having on fourth down right now, do you think?
I think it's just belief, man. Like it really isn't anything else. Like we just go out there and execute. And, if we don't look at it like, hey, it's fourth down, it's just another play, man. Like we just go out there and execute and do our thing. And, Emeka made a great catch on that one, over route. And, G made a great catch on the other one. Like all I got to do is just put it in their hands, man. Let them do the rest.
Well, what happened on the interception? It looked like you got some pressure, maybe threw off the back foot a little bit. What happened there?
Yeah, just bad decision. They went cover 2 there. We were expecting we wanted them to go some sort of man on that play. The play clock was running down. Ended up just kind of rushing a decision and forced it into there. And really should have just got backside and worked my spread, my spread concept back to the field. But that's something we can learn from. And I think the thing that I'm most proud of, and I said this last week, was that nobody batted an eye. And those guys, came over to me on the sideline. They're like, dude, you're fine. I was like, I'm not worried about it. Nobody's worried about it. We bounced right back, came right back down and scored. And I think that's the biggest thing, man. And mental toughness is moving, the ability to move on to the next most important thing. And I think we did a good job with that. But yeah, on that play, just the Will squeezed. I didn't feel him squeeze as much as he did. And, and I just forced it.
Got time for a couple more questions. Stephen Means, Cleveland.com.
Cody, you're probably one of the people you could ask this question to as one of the leaders. Given the way your guys' defense has played in the first half of the last 2 games, are you guys happy with the way you guys have played in the first half when you guys are going back and looking at the film?
I think the difference between this game and last game was just the attacking the ball, getting turnovers. I mean, we're never really satisfied. I mean, we let up way too many X plays, too many yards. I think that's our main focus really is just, getting those 3 and outs because that helps the offense out so much. I mean, that's just something we're just working on every day. Like every practice day, we're focused on getting the ball out, stopping the rushing yards. So we have a lot to build on. And I'm like, we haven't played our perfect game yet. And so that's what's exciting about it because we can really put it all together and then it could be something real special.
Last question from the left, Tim May, 11 in a row.
Yeah, for Will Howard, as you guys leave this game offensively, what did y'all learn about yourself tonight? I mean, obviously, some big plays were made on 4th down, et cetera. You and Devin both delivered some strikes when needed. What's just your overall take?
I think, we're resilient and, we can be explosive. And, I think we were able to hurt them in a lot of different ways. I think there was stuff that we had on the play sheet that we didn't even call that I think would have been really good too. And that's, that's the exciting thing is that there's more in store, man. Like we did not play a perfect game. I threw that interception. That was a bad play. That draw I want back. I wish I would have just taken my time on it a little more, gone to the right. There's just a couple things, here and there that coming out of that game, you're like, man, we won 38-7, but, against a solid Big Ten team on the road, it's not easy. And we, a win is a win and we're going to take it. But at the end of the day, there's always more to build on and improve from.
And final question, Joey Kaufman, Columbus Dispatch.
Well, when you guys go for it on 4th down and you're able to drop back and throw, how would you describe the level of trust you feel from a coach to have you not just maybe hand the ball off, but like look downfield and make the right read?
I love it. I love, when you feel that confidence from your coordinator, from your head coach, when they put the ball in your hand on 4th down and they say, hey, and we trust that you're going to make this play and we trust the O-line is going to take care of the protection and the receivers are going to run the routes and make the plays. And at the end of the day, like I don't think any of us even thought about walking off the field on any of those 3rd downs. Like we were all out there and the mentality that brings, when we're just like, hey man, like we're going for it on these 4th downs, no doubt. Like it's just all of us are kind of in it together and it gives you a sort of pride.
Great. Well, thank you very much. Cody, thank you very much.
Thank you. I'll go Bucks.
Thank you very much. We'll see you on Tuesday.
So that was Ohio State head coach Ryan Day, Jeremiah Smith, Emeka Egbuka, Jordan Hancock, Cody Simon, Will Howard, all speaking after the 38-7 win for Ohio State over Michigan State here this evening. I'm Garrett Seawright in the Buckeye Huddle postgame tailgate presented by Tailgate USA, bringing back Mark Givler and Michael Pettit into the postgame tailgate. And guys, I think and Mark, I'll start with you. I think it's somewhat impressive for Will Howard to own his mistakes there in the first half where maybe pressing just a little bit too much. The interception was a really bad decision. And he admitted as much in the post-game conference there that like, hey, that was a bad decision. I shouldn't have done what I did. And I ended up biting me. He made another poor decision in the red zone. For him to own that, I think speaks a lot about the maturity, but also the kind of self-awareness of that quarterback position right now for Will Howard.
Yeah, I mean, he's a veteran. He's been in these situations before, and when you've been battle tested like he has, I think it's a lot easier to draw from your experience and then realize, yeah, this isn't the first interception I've thrown. It won't be the last interception that I will throw, and just knowing you can get right back out there and get back at it. And I think this team has developed a next play mentality, not dwelling on mistakes, and again going out and just focusing on the next big play. I think the offense and the defense have both done this so far this year, where we've seen them create explosive plays on offense, and we've seen them go out there and maybe give up some yards on defense, but then come up with a fumble or an interception or something like that. So, it's what comes with maturity and leadership, and Will Howard definitely has both of those things. So, it was encouraging to see him bounce back so quickly. He got a little loose with it there, I thought, for a couple of drives. And you wonder, like, I don't know if he would admit this, but like you wonder just like if sometimes with those receivers, they're so good if you just feel invincible sometimes, where it's like,
Yeah.
I know I shouldn't make this throw, but there's Jeremiah or there's Emeka, they'll figure it out. Like you just wonder. It kind of goes back to my whole, margin for error and just, making sure that just because you have all these talented weapons, all this explosive playability, you still have to make sure you're making the right decisions.
Michael, talking about those wide receivers, Jeremiah Smith is 18 years old, and he sure is a real good football player, isn't he?
Yeah, he's something else. I figured, I bought all the hype with him because I watched him play on national television a couple of times against like other nationally ranked high school teams and saw what he was doing against them. So it wasn't just like, oh, here's some kid who played in some random area of the country and was okay. I saw him do it live, but even then, it's pretty amazing what he's already doing, especially this early in his career.
And Mark, you've seen a lot of Ohio State football. What is Jeremiah Smith's ceiling? I know there is a ceiling, but where in the stratosphere is that thing?
I mean, I've said this before he got on campus. He's the best wide receiver prospect I've ever seen in high school. I've been watching Jeremiah since going into a sophomore year of high school. We go down there every spring and we go to Chaminade Madonna High School. We would watch him practice and scrimmages, and I've been down there for games and obviously watched him on TV. And the scariest thing about him, which I've kind of said for a while, is he's physically exactly what you would build. There isn't a thing about him physically that isn't just like prototype, but he is such a hard worker. He is such like a student of the game. He is such a guy who just, he works at every little detail of playing wide receiver. He has carried himself like an adult since he was 15, 16 years old, just since I've been covering him. It was always amazing just talking to him, how mature he was and how little he seemed to care about the hype around him, and just kind of was able to block that out and just continue to focus. Just it's a special combination. It really is. Because you see guys who maybe aren't the most talented guys, but they just have everything off the field, like a Terry McLaurin. Like Terry McLaurin is not an athletic marvel. In fact, Terry McLaurin had trouble catching the ball in high school. He kind of fought the ball. He had to work so hard to become what he is now. And it just, but to have that type of attitude and work ethic in a player like Jeremiah at 6'3", 220, and I think being one of the fastest receivers in the country as well. On top of that, it's unique. And I've seen almost all the top receivers coming out of high school over the last 15 years. He's the best one I've seen.
Michael, they talked in the postgame press conference to Will Howard a little bit about the confidence on fourth down. They're 3 for 4 on fourth down tonight, where it wasn't just necessarily fourth and short that they were going for it. It was they were going for it on 4th and 5. When they talk about the confidence that they have, that it's just another down. It's not a like, oh boy, it's 4th down. We better pick this up or we're in a world of hurt. What does that say about the team where they are in 4 games when that's kind of the thought process is? It's just another play. We got to go out and execute.
I think it says a lot. I mean, I think this is a really, really good offense. I think this year's offense is a lot better than last year's. I think from top to bottom, the receiving group, which it's crazy, you lose Marvin Harrison Jr., but this receiving group, I think from top to bottom, is, especially with Ibuka being hurt so much last year, this is a lot better of a group of receivers. I think at the worst, Will Howard is just as good of a passer as Kyle McCord. I'd argue that he's better. He has, what I've noticed about Howard is that even when he's in a good rhythm, there's all of a sudden going to come one throw where you're like, whoa, what happened there? But I mean, he does a good job and he can make plays with his feet, so that more than makes up for it. And I think the offensive line's better as well. And then Judkins is the best running back Ohio State's had in at least since Dobbins, if not before then. So, I mean, I think this team knows how good they are, and I think that's kind of what it says to me.
Speaking of those running backs, Mark, I think it's an impressive, and I'll get your opinion on this. I think it's an impressive attribute that they both pass protect as well as they do. That there are touchdowns tonight that don't happen unless the running back, who both have NFL aspirations, if they don't pick up blitzing linebackers, they don't make the play. there are touchdowns off the board tonight for Ohio State.
They've really both bought into the team concept, both just in terms of just how they talk about each other, in terms of splitting carries, splitting reps, being selfless with that. And then you see that carry over to the field with their pass blocking, with catching the ball out of the backfield, the things they can both do. They're very, and I think we talked about this last week, they're very interchangeable. Like, this isn't a thunder and lightning situation, right, where, you have to bring in a different type of back and then, your offense changes a little bit, or you got to fit around what, each one of them does well. They're very interchangeable, which I think makes it really difficult for defenses when you're able to kind of just take the number 2 guy or whoever, you don't want to calling them 1 and 1A. Devin was calling them 1A and 1A last week, but just the ability to interchange them and not have to do anything different with your offense, I think, is also key. It's to me, it's the most impressive tandem of running backs they've had in forever. Like, they've had like deep running back rooms in the past,
right?
But it's usually like there's been like that one guy who's like the bell cow, and then you've got this like stable of young guys behind him that are going to be really good, but they don't share the reps necessarily. And this is like special, just having both of these guys at this point in their careers, just being able to run them, roll them in and out. I think it's going to really help them, especially Henderson, who's had some injury issues over the years, keep fresh throughout the year.
When you mentioned that that they do have a lot of the similar qualities, does that make things more difficult for Chip Kelly, because there isn't a okay, this is what we're trying to accomplish on this play, Quinshawn, you're in, this is what we're trying to accomplish, that they are so similar that it does make that distribution of carries a little bit more difficult, perhaps?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think they're both, we can sit here and laugh about the idea of Quinshawn Judkins coming back for his senior year next year, or we can kind of, get with reality and realize this is the money year for both of these guys. So that's certainly, I think, something that, has to come into play when you're sitting down, middle of the week and you're thinking about these things. But ultimately, I think what we'll see is that certain guys, both these guys, are going to have their games where we're just seeing it perfectly, like a hot shooter or anything, just like anything else. And last week that was clearly Judkins, just the way he was seeing it. But I think it'll kind of sort itself out, where it's like, okay, like, yes, we'll get each guy a series, here and there, but we're also going to see kind of how maybe the first 2 or 3 quarters play out. And if someone's seeing it better that day, they're going to get the carries. So I don't think having 2 running backs like that is, I think that'd be a first world problem. I think Chip would probably be like, yeah, this beats the alternative.
Yeah, it sucks to be me. I've got 2 guys who are really good at football. Man, this is difficult. And I think tonight, Travion Henderson is that he 7 carries, 69 yards. You're going 9.9 yards per carry. I don't know how, and I don't think Quinshawn Judkins, both of them have handled the situation perfectly. Neither one of them has pouted that well, it's not fair. I want to get the ball. Everybody wants the ball. But when one guy's averaging 10 yards a carry, it sure is hard not to give that guy the rock.
Yeah, no question. It's going to be a really good problem to have for them. And it's like every week, one of them's averaging over 10 yards a carry. It feels like, if not both of them. So it's one of those things where, I'm sure like Iowa's going to be a really good test, I think, for them, for their run game. But it just, you wonder how you bottle both of those guys up for 4 quarters. It feels inevitable that one of them is going to break a big play or 2 throughout the course of a game. I don't know how you go about slowing them down for 4 quarters. It's got to be, as much as we talk about the receivers and those types of things, I don't know how you defend both of these guys for 4 quarters and prevent them from hurting you at some point.
Speaking of defense, Michael, when you take a look at the stats tonight, Ohio State keeps Michigan State 246 yards, and 199 of them are through the air. So Michigan State ran the ball 25 times for 47 yards. And when you hear those numbers, when it's 1.9 yards per carry tonight for the Spartans, what's the first thing that comes to your mind when you hear those numbers?
I mean, some of that is kind of adjusted by sacks, if we're being honest. So there is that to always consider. But I thought overall though the run defense was pretty good. The guy who just keeps jumping out of the screen to me, and I noticed this in the very limited reps he played last season as well. I kind of predicted this, but Caden McDonald is an absolute beast. I mean, he's one of those guys. I guess it doesn't matter, that's a position you got to rotate a lot anyways, but I think he has a good argument as being the best nose tackle on the team, to be honest. One of my things with the run defense tonight, though, was that, again, it just kind of goes back. I just feel like when they go in these 3 linebacker sets, it kind of messes with everybody's head, and they kind of start to – the linebackers don't seem to fill as well from when they're just in their base 4-2-5 defense. However, we have 2 safeties who are very good at coming downhill when we're in, quarters coverage looks, and we're spilling the ball to them on the outside.
So when you look at the linebacker rotation, or maybe the linebacker situation, Michael, is there in your head, is it Cody Simon and Arvell Reese? Is it Sonny Styles and Arvell Reese? Is it Cody Simon and Sonny Styles? Who do you think should be the 2 linebackers in the base 4-2-5? That these are the guys who are on the field, and if we get in a spot where we need to bring a 3rd linebacker on, that's that guy.
I don't think there's a big difference between them. I kind of tend to agree with, Mark's always said that he thinks Styles is probably best suited as an edge. I do tend to kind of agree with that. It's not going to happen this year. It's just not. I mean, based on their personnel and everything, and actually, if you watch the second half against Marshall, you actually did see Styles. It started to look like he was really getting it with his run fits and stuff. I don't think there's a big difference between the top 3 guys of the linebackers, but it's just that when you go to the 3 linebacker sets, everything just gets messed up because it's all this shuffling. Again, you have Simon as your starting Mike, you have Styles as your starting Will, but when they go 3 linebackers, they move Simon to Will, they move Styles over to Sam, and they put Reese at Mike. So it's just kind of a shuffle that creates a lot of problems, I think.
We talked about Sonny Styles' struggles just a little bit here this evening, where he got burnt crispy in coverage at one point. And I wonder, Mark, obviously you've mentioned that you think he's more of an edge than that maybe middle linebacker archetype, but how long is the acclimation period to kind of switch from where he was to a pure linebacker role?
Yeah, I think that's the catch-22 right now, is that he's going to have to kind of fail a few times. He's going to have to get reps. There's no way you can only do so much in practice. You have to see things live in game action against a team who's actively trying to trick you every play, and it's going to be one of those things where, okay, like how long of a leash do we have here where we got to let him go out there and make some mistakes and learn from them versus, hey, like we kind of need you to not make these mistakes at Oregon or something like that, So that's going to be an interesting thing for me. But, I think they had to know that going in when you go from safety to linebacker, that's a pretty big move. And I think linebacker, other than maybe corner, just because of the way the game is called these days, I think linebacker might be the toughest position to play on the defense, just because of all the different things you have to know, all the things you have to do, all the things you have to be aware of. So it's a lot. It's a big undertaking, which is why, as someone who's always felt he's kind of an attacking type of player versus a read react, I think it'd be a lot easier to put him on the edge and say, just go get the quarterback.
Is that Michael, is that somewhat of a foreign concept in a Jim Knowles defense?
Well,
like you can't, can they just say, hey, Sonny, I need you to watch the Cowboys every Sunday, and then I need you to be Micah Parsons. Like that's just what I need you to be.
I mean, it's not a foreign concept in a Jim Knowles defense. We saw him do it at Oklahoma State. I mean, he used a jack. I was still primarily, an even front, but he would play the jack, who was a stand-up edge, who would line up to the boundary. It's just that with Ohio State's personnel and who they've recruited and the size of their defensive ends, they just don't really have the person to do that right now. And realistically, they're just, I just have a feeling there's some internal conflict on the defensive staff about how, things should be. And, JT and Jack Sawyer were not going to come back if they were told, oh yeah, but because, neither of them would fit the ideal, Jack position.
Right.
Sonny Styles to play. So they're not probably neither of them, maybe one of them, but I don't think either of them would have came back if they were told, yeah, we're going to implement the Jack this year. So only one of you guys will be a starter on that other side. I think it's possible. I mean, I don't know. It's a tough transition when I feel like, first of all, there's different philosophies within just the defensive staff alone. And then the types of players they've recruited. I mean, all their defensive ends are like 260 plus. Whereas with a Jack linebacker, you kind of want them to be more like, 245 or so, a little bit lighter. And I don't know. I mean, I would like them to use it. The way they employed it in 2022 was not, I think it kind of messed up a lot of Ohio State fans' idea of what a Jack is. That really wasn't a true traditional Jack, which we've seen from Jim Knowles at Oklahoma State. But I'd like to see them use it. I don't know when the best time is. There's so much to consider these days, because with unlimited transfers, you have to consider like roster management, roster turnover, at all these types of decisions you make. So I don't know, but maybe next year there's some way it could work out.
Guys, generally we don't talk about special teams in a post-game scenario unless something went really wrong or really poorly. And I think it's fair to say last week in the kickoff game, things went really poorly for Ohio State. And sometimes settling for like, hey, you know what? We kicked the ball between the lines is a win you can celebrate. And I think to have that kind of bounce back where it wasn't nearly as bad as last week, it feels like sometimes you have to take what you can get, and not being nearly as bad as last week is a A+ in that category, I think, Mark.
Message received, I think, in terms of Jaden Fielding, and just man, I mean, Day was furious with him on the field. He was still agitated about it after the game, and flat out said, "Well, we're going to have to revisit that position." And so, fire was lit, and I think message was received this week. I don't know what happened last week. I know, like I said, under Urban Meyer, they would actively, and under, prior kickoff rules, they would actively try to kind of pin teams in that corner, kick it short of the goal line. And so you'd have this little margin for error where, yeah, if you pulled it just a little bit, you could yank one out of bounds, but they're not actively trying to do that anymore. They're trying to kick it as far as they can. And he just, duck hooked a few out of bounds. And so I don't know. I know, like I said, I know Dave had some very harsh words during the game. I know after the game, he was still very, very upset about it. And so he let them, I guess, hash it out this week in practice, and they gave everyone a look, I guess. And Fielding was able to go out there and keep the job. But yeah, that was, I guess, encouraging that whatever the yips or whatever he got last week seemed to be fixed, because it's hard enough to play defense nowadays, but giving opponents the ball in that situation when you kick it out of bounds it really strains your defense when you continually do that.
Yeah, field position game is completely flipped and makes things much easier. Like, it's real hard to go 80 yards to score a touchdown. It's a little easier. Every 10 yards you're moving up. Michael, before we get to Tom Orr and Tony Gerdeman back in East Lansing for the Buckeye Weekly podcast in the second portion of the Buckeye Huddle postgame tailgate presented by Tailgate USA, I want to get kind of your overall 1,000-foot view. What were your biggest big takeaways from tonight, both positive and negative from both sides of the ball? What are you going to leave a 38-7 win for the Buckeyes with tonight?
The negative, as I've been, vocal about throughout this evening, is that there's just some schematic things that still don't make sense. I don't think there's a reason to put a third linebacker on the field just because a team brings in a second tight end. But, other than that, I mean, the positives on defense, I mean, Again, Caden McDonald was just jumping out the screen. I thought the defensive ends did a little better job generating pressure tonight as well. And the safeties, once again, just continue to be such a bright spot. And then offensively, we talked about it earlier briefly, but I just love what I'm seeing. All these talented skill guys, I really love what I'm seeing how seriously they're taking their blocking. I was always just so frustrated when Tony Alford was running our running back coach. I felt like our running backs under him often were not great blockers, or just didn't seem like it. Seemed like there was a lot of whiffs in pass pro. And whereas before Alford was there, I mean, you guys all remember Carlos Hyde and Zeke Elliott. They were both phenomenal blockers. And so it's like, to me, it was like Alford was the common denominator. Is he not teaching this right? Is he not stressing it enough? And you see Henderson, Judkins, even Peoples at times. I've seen him step up and pick up blitzes in the limited time he's been in. The receivers are blocking well on the outside. So other than all the obvious, that's just something I want to point out as a good positive on the offensive side of the ball. Nothing really, nothing too negative on the offensive side of the ball tonight, in my opinion. I mean, sure, a couple things could have been better, but nothing worth, getting too into, in my opinion.
Mark, same question for you. When you leave this game and you move on later down the season, what will be the big takeaways, the standout from a 38-7 win?
Yeah, obviously, look, I think Jeremiah Smith continues to raise the bar. I said before the season, I said I've never hyped an incoming freshman like this, and yet I still am struggling to hype him enough, apparently, because he keeps, no matter how much expectations I put out there about him, he seems to exceed them and do something special every week. So I just continue to be amazed by his play. And I agree with Michael a lot on the linebackers, but the one thing I'm starting to take away from the defense they're taking the ball away. This was a team that did not force a lot of turnovers last year. They're forcing turnovers this year. They can, if they can clean up some of the other stuff, I just think I would rather have, in my opinion, I would rather have a really good defense that turns the opponent over a lot than a great defense that doesn't turn the opponent over. I think turnovers are worth a little bit extra when you can force the sudden change, especially with the offense they have behind them. So that's encouraging to me. I agree with Michael. I thought the DNs played better tonight. JT had a sack. Jack Sawyer blew up Aiden Childs on the play where Simon almost had the interception. I thought they were active. I thought Mitchell Melton came in late and was all over the place, actually. So that was encouraging. But yeah, that's kind of where I'm at right now. I try not to take too much away from a single performance. My philosophy has always been that, look, you play a 12 game regular season schedule. You're going to play 2 really bad games. You're going to play 2 great, almost perfect games. And then those 8 games in the middle are really what you are as a team. And every team kind of has that type of 12 game set. And so, I try to get too wrapped up into 1 or 2 games and kind of what it means long-term, but there's trends here that are encouraging with the turnovers. And of course, again, with Jeremiah Smith just making freakish plays every week.
Oh, there's Jeff Brantley, the Reds radio analyst, has this idea that, in a 10-year stretch, one year, everything you do is going to end up going perfectly for you, no matter what you did, whether it was the wrong decision or not. 1 year, everything's going to go bad. It's what you do in those 8 years. And it's sort of the similar in a 12-game football season, right? Sometimes it's just going to be a slog, and other times you get off the bus and kick somebody's tail just because, that's just the way the cookie crumbles sometimes. And I think in a 38-7 win, when you look at those numbers, at 483 versus 286 and 298 yards through the air versus 199, and you hold them to 1.9 yards rushing for the night, I think overall, it's easy to nitpick, but when push comes to shove, it's a big time impressive Big Ten opening win. So that will do it for the first half of the post-game huddle presented by Tailgate USA. We will now send it back to East Lansing at Spartan Stadium. Tom Moore and Tony Gerdeman are standing by for the second half and the Buckeye Weekly podcast.
Thank you, Garrett. Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Mike, for the first half, covering the first half of the Ohio State 38-7 win at Michigan State. Are they doing the read right now?
No, we're gonna hit it right now.
Okay, so let's do the read right now. Let's talk about our sponsor for the post-game tailgate. Tailgate USA, a wonderful endeavor to, if you want to throw a tailgate, you want to throw a party, they can set everything up for you. They'll bring it to you or wherever you want to be. 16 states around the nation. They're in Columbus, Ohio for you. If you want to get a tailgate ready for one of the upcoming games, give them a call. They'll bring in basically a tent. They'll bring in a trailer. They'll bring in a kitchen. They'll bring in pretty much anything you need, including if you want some staff for it. They can get you covered. They can put it together, Tom. And what's the best part about it then?
Then all you have to do is the fun part. We got to campus very early today. I was genuinely impressed. I mean, Michigan State is known as a party school, and we got to campus, what, 6.5, 7 hours before the game, and it was already rocking on campus. And a good reminder about how much fun tailgating is. Even when the weather forecast was a little dicey, definitely still a really fun day. This is a fun campus. This is a place where it is a very pretty campus. It is a campus where you can have some fun. I find, Tony, I can generally have fun on pretty much any college campus, on pretty much any college football Saturday. But a tailgate party from Tailgate USA would probably help that even more.
And then once you're done with your tailgate, they'll come and take it all away for you. So check them out at tailgateusa.net. Full service tailgating and whatever you need, they can do for you. It's a fantastic thing, and it's good people run by a Buckeye fan. So support those who support the Buckeyes and who support us as well. So check them out at tailgateusa.net. Tom, let me start. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Buckeye Weekly podcast. I am Tony Gerdeman, here as always with Tom Orr. Tom, how's it going?
Well, Tony, that was a pretty interesting football game. That was a football game that started, and I thought, oh boy, this is going to be a little rough. This is going to be a little uneven. It's going to be a little poorly officiated. It was all of those things. And then all of a sudden, it was very much not that. It turned into the Jeremiah Smith game. And Tony, not the first Jeremiah Smith game, not going to be the last Jeremiah Smith game, but boy, Jeremiah Smith games are pretty darn fun.
It is. And you guys saw the post game with Ryan Day. I had my hand up. I was trying to get him to ask, wanted to ask him a question, because when he was talking about that catch, he was saying, I couldn't believe he caught it. And I just wanted to ask, how many times since January have you said that to yourself and seen what he's done? And it's like, are you sure you should still doubt anything that he can do? Like, shouldn't you believe he catches everything? And then in that post game, Jeremiah Smith was asked if that was his favorite catch. He's like, no, the one before that, the deep one before that was, and that one was also pretty incredible. Jeremiah Smith. And then of course, now averaging 19 yards per rush, probably an all-time high for an Ohio State Buckeye. They got him involved, and you never know what you're going to see from him, but you're always going to enjoy what you get to see from him.
Yeah, it is going to be incredible. And you went through, and he had a 19-yard touchdown run, and it was like, oh, that was a cool play. That was neat. Good for him. And then you had the one where he went way, way, way up, caught it, got face mask on the way down, still caught it between two defensive backs, and it was like, wow, I bet that's going to be the coolest catch of the night. And then 2 minutes later, Will Howard gets knocked out. Devin Brown comes in, leads Jeremiah Smith, and I thought, oh, he let him too much. And I have yet to see Jeremiah Smith get overthrown this season, as far as I can remember. One hand right down the sideline. He was like, oh no, now that's the coolest catch he's going to have all night.
Well, and the other thing I wanted to ask Ryan Day, which he kind of talked about after that, was Travion Henderson picking up the blitz on that one. If he doesn't do that, none of that happens. And he saved Devin Brown's life on that one. And he did that a couple times. Did the same thing for Will Howard on, I think, a fourth down that turned into maybe the Emeka Ibuka touchdown. And Tom, I'll let you eventually get to how aggressive they were on fourth downs. I'm sure you enjoyed that when they're going for it on 4th and 1, when the game is essentially over, or they could punt when it's like 38-7 on their own 45 or whatever. It's like, no, we're going to go for it. I figured you like that. But overall, like the aggression, this was reminiscent of the Ryan Day who comes out swinging, and they took some shots. They gave some shots, and this game, the first half of this game could have gone much differently if Michigan State catches the interception in the end zone that turns into a touchdown. They don't turn it over twice in their own territory like they did, or in Ohio State's territory. This could have been a 24-21 game very easily in the second half. but Ohio State took advantage of Michigan State's mistakes. As Ryan Day said, that's football. Turnovers are part of the game, and they made the most of it. I think Ohio State's defense gave up 186 yards in the first half, and then like 19 in the third quarter, and then junk yards there in the fourth quarter. So a nice bounce back from the defense as we just bounce all over the place and throw out thoughts.
Yeah, we have a very well-structured show, as
Yeah.
always, on these post-game shows. I want to circle back to the aggression on fourth down and why were they able to do that? And you look at how effective they were running the football.
Mm-hmm.
So much of this starts with, can you run the football? And 5.3 yards per carry, and this was not skewed by an 86-yarder like it was last week.
Right.
Long for Travion Henderson, 37, averages 9.9 yards per carry, 7 catches, 69 yards, darn near a first down every time he had it on average. Quinshon Judkins, 11 carries, nearly 54 yards, long of 18. He averaged about half of a first down every time he carried it. And Will Howard, 2.3 yards per carry, not huge. There were a sack or two, I think, in there, but had that 14-yard touchdown. They were able to run the ball, and it wasn't huge. It wasn't incredible. It wasn't explosive and flashy like it was a week ago, but they were able to run the ball. And when you're able to run the ball, then that opens up the passing attack. Because it felt like I say this every week. I'm down on the field. I don't have a great view of the whole defense and what they're schematically doing. It felt like Michigan State was trying to take the run away early. Was that sort of the sense you got?
Well, and that's why I think that's also why Ohio State opened the game throwing the ball.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you're going to give us the pass, we're going to take the pass. And that's Will Howard was started out 7 of 7 until I think Emeka Egbuka had a drop. And then I think he was maybe like 10 of 11 after that. But this team is good enough to take what you give them and do something with it. And not just, yes, we'll just piecemeal it down because you're letting us throw the ball. They're going to do something with it. And if they did have the turnover in there as well, but the offense right now can do whatever, and that's the balance that they talk about.
Yeah. So here's one of the things. In addition to the rushing, Will Howard, 21 of 31, 244 yards, a couple of touchdowns through the air, had that one interception, which was he feels like there've been a couple times this year that I thought that wasn't a good choice.
Mm-hmm. That was one of them.
The throw, he had a couple throws into double coverage that were kind of like, there's got to be someone else who's open. And especially when you're throwing in double coverage and you're not throwing to Jeremiah Smith, they're not double covering everyone. So that's not, if you're throwing to a tight end who's double covered, that's not the right read.
Well, and I think pretty much everybody tuning in got to see everything that Will Howard and all the players and the coaches had to say because they're all there. But Will Howard talked about how they were expecting man. It was a cover 2. Shouldn't have thrown it. It is always interesting to watch Will Howard playing reasonably well, very well, and eventually it's always like, what did you see on the interception? And you just see him like, I shouldn't have done it.
Yeah, I'm sure he's heard
Learning,
Ryan Day say the standard is the standard, right? So he understands that this is why no one's picking on you. I think Columbus on the whole likes Will Howard just fine right now.
But I think even the first question he got after the game last week was, Will, what'd you see on that interception?
Mm-hmm.
It's like
a guy catching the pass. It wasn't the one I had wanted to.
Yeah, exactly. I didn't see it. That's why I threw it. That's what I saw.
But you go through and you look at his numbers, 21 to 31. It's not incredible, but he's basically completing about 70% completions. And it felt like there were a couple drops.
Yeah, there were. Emeka had 2.
Emeka had a couple drops. There were, you had the interception. There were, a few incompletions here or there. There was one where Bennett Christian, it might not have, was it still Will Howard at that point when Bennett Christian slipped? I think it might have been.
Yeah, I don't remember.
There were a couple that were not necessarily entirely his fault. So, 70% completions, 244 yards, a couple touchdowns, a great rushing touchdown. That was one where he pulled it, and I kind of looking through the camera, I'm like, there's no one there. He's going to score. You can tell very early he was going to score.
Yeah, well, and as like the play before that, Andy Anders, 11 Warriors, we're all in a row. He's like the read keeper is wide open if Will wants it, and Will takes it, and they see it, and then, like 3 seconds later, he took it and walked right in, and it was a 6-yard touchdown, I believe. And we talked about the game, how Will Howard, once he starts using his legs, and he had what, two carries on the first drive or so, and they weren't long or anything, but you could see they're getting him more involved, and that one was just begging to be run.
Well, and there was one comment up on the screen a second ago from Bomo, who was basically saying that the Will Howard game was a little like the Justin Fields game, where he would get popped and he'd go out for here it is, felt like Justin Fields days. Howard gets pops hard, goes out for a minute, comes back in and plays so well, and that was when he got hit. I was trying to figure out what he said. He just got the wind knocked out of him. I thought the way he was down and the way he was like on a knee and they were like talking to him for quite a while, I thought maybe he hit his head. Apparently not, because he came back in.
It was like a helmet in the ribs.
Okay.
So like right in the breadbasket maybe.
Yeah.
And so I think he was hurting.
Yeah.
And he was also out of breath. And he did say, I'm sure I'll feel it tomorrow morning.
Oh yeah. You probably have a nice little bruise down there, but
Mm-hmm.
yeah, and came right back in and seemed none the worse for wear.
Yeah, no. And then Devin Brown, the competitive excellence of being able to come right in. And I love ball.
I got it. There we go.
Hey,
No, not right.
That's your laptop.
Not right. We'll switch it. Sorry, everyone.
Hey, is that us? Is that
Yes,
me?
that's us.
Am I
yes.
on?
Now you are. Yes.
All right. Thank you for that. Sorry about that. That was, I don't want to blame you, Tom.
It was indirectly Kevin's fault, but it was mostly my fault directly.
I'm sitting above you guys. Here in the
So-
penthouse.
This is when that hits 30 minutes, you're going to hit record again.
All right. Are you? Is
Yeah,
the
we're good.
production
Yeah,
meeting
we're
done?
good.
Can
Yeah,
we get
we're
back to
good.
the show?
Sorry.
Sorry.
Had to call an audible there,
Yeah,
Tony.
no, this is
It's a
life.
football term.
This is the life on the road when you're trying to find somewhere to do a show and then also how to operate it. So Devin Brown being able to come in, as I was saying, they were aggressive by throwing the ball because this is a 3rd and 10. It's like, well, you just hand it off or something like that. And they're like, no. We're going to sling it. And they did. And I loved the aggression, the approach all game long from Chip Kelly, from Ryan Day. And I don't know if you saw it at the end. When it was Julian Sayin and maybe Sam Williams-Dixon in there, they had a new alignment in terms of how they were like really offset with the running back and a couple of blockers. And that was a delay of game or a tight end there. It's like a timeout. They're still adding stuff. And as Will Howard also said, Ryan Day said, we had other stuff that we didn't get to use, didn't get to. So you're continuing to see the evolution of this offense.
Yeah, and they're really spreading the ball around. I know we have a graphic with the targets for Will Howard and how much they spread the ball around. That is that was something they really did. Yeah, here we go. Howard's targets. Quinshon Judkins, 2 targets, 2 catches, 17 yards. Nothing spectacular, but that's probably keeping you on schedule, maybe moving the chains. Travion Henderson, 3 targets, 2 catches, -1 yards. He got drilled at one point. There was Will Howard at one point. I thought, boy, he might be hurt, like seriously hurt. Travion Henderson, the same thing. He got tackled. It was just kind of a weird, awkward thing. Reminded me of the Notre Dame game last year where he got rolled up on and it just looked awkward and bad. But then he was right back in there. Cardinals had 5 targets, 3 catches, 52 yards. Jeremiah Smith, 6 targets and 5 catches. I don't remember him missing one. I don't know. I don't remember that, but 83. I'm sure he's right. I'm sure our producer is right. I just don't remember it. 83 yards, 1 touchdown, not including the reception or the rushing touchdown. G. Scott, 4 targets, 3 catches, 14 yards, 1 touchdown. And Emeka Ibuka, 11 targets. They really went back.
Yeah, they did.
Emeka quite a bit. 7 catches, 96 yards, a touchdown. G. Scott, this is one of these stories that's going to get lost in all the other stuff that's happening. G. Scott, I believe he only had 1 career touchdown before this. Is that correct?
I think
Or is it
so.
2? Because I know the last time we all were up here 2 years ago, he scored his first
Is that
career
right?
touchdown.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was in the right end zone and caught a touchdown. That was towards the end of the game.
The
This one
Spartan
was
killer?
much earlier. Yeah, you call him the Visigoths. Yes. See, I should. Sorry. You know what? Forget that. We're going to talk about the defense because what did the Visigoths do to the Spartans, Tony?
Oh, I didn't do history.
They sacked them. Tony,
There you go.
should we talk about the defense?
Yeah, let's
Tony,
do
because
that.
I got a good joke. Remind me to tell it later.
So in the first half, it was concerning. And if you look like at the 3 of their first 4 drives for Michigan State, all over like 55, 60 yards, turnovers saved Ohio State, but they also created those turnovers. The Aiden Childs fumble. Did you see the face mask on the screen, on the big screen, that didn't get called on that one?
Yeah.
By Taiwan Malone. So that could have been negated. But the defense made plays when they had to. 186 yards, I think, in the first half. I believe they gave up maybe 3 yards rushing in the second half total. And there was a concern about tackling from the linebackers. Our phones are blowing up about the first half performance from the defense, and then things got better. Did you see they started with the 4-3 right out of the gate with Arvell Reese in there? So they're trying. They're just, some of the criticism last week was you've just got one linebacker in the box. Well, they went 3 times that in this one. And then you also saw Caleb Downs come crashing in several times. You always know, like, you just see this flash and you're like, oh, that was Caleb Downs. You don't need to see a number. It's just.
Well, it was Caleb Downs. It was also Arvell Reese. There was one kind of late in the game where Arvell Reese hit someone, and you could just hear, you heard it, and it was, as my brain said, that was Arvell Reese. And boy, there was some hitting out there. I mean, there was some hitting out there. This was maybe the first time you really truly felt Caleb Downs' impact on the field. Like he was out there, he was making his presence felt. That's kind of, it felt a little long overdue. And this is the 4th game of the season. It's the first Big Ten game. So it's a little weird to say, oh boy, where has this been all season? But there was a certain amount of, you've heard about Caleb Downs so much, and I think a lot of people were wondering, okay, well, where is he? When is he going to do this? But
well, and I've used this analogy before. I think with Caleb Downs now, it's like the Jurassic Park Tyrannosaurus Rex. He doesn't want to be fed. He wants to hunt.
Yeah.
He's waiting for the Big Ten to start hunting. I don't want to be fed these MAC schools. I want to hunt some Big Ten football, and he did. And it's just fun to watch when he comes crashing in. And it's like you're the last defender, and he just cleans out the ball carrier, and his tackling has gotten better because he did miss some tackles in the first game. Not going to hold it against him if he's going to continue to play like this.
Yeah, you can tell that in bigger games, the bigger the game, the more they're going to be leaning on him. When you're playing a lesser team and they can't really drive the ball down the field, you're not necessarily going to see the adjuster being a big playmaker.
Yeah.
He had to come a little closer to the line to make a lot of the plays tonight, but he made them. You're starting to see, I think I'm feeling more optimistic about increasingly optimistic about a secondary I already was feeling. I think everyone's feeling great about for Ohio State. The front 7 is a little more, it just feels like there's a disconnect there. I don't quite, and again, I have a terrible view. So sometimes my mindset on this may be skewed a little bit by just an individual play here and there. It just feels like there's a little bit of a disconnect in that front 7.
Well, and there's a disconnect, and I don't know what exactly it is, because they fix it, in the second half it's all fixed. So like, yeah, you're going to see new things that you haven't necessarily seen, but you're right. Like they were doing some different things in there. They had 5 defensive linemen in there at once. I think they may have had 3 in there another time in a dime. So like they're doing some different things, and which is good to see. But it's hard to be too, like, the first half happened. So did the second half.
Yeah.
What is, they can adjust so quickly now with the iPads and seeing the film. It's like Ryan Day said, we watched the film at halftime.
Yeah.
The halftime is 20 minutes long.
Right.
And it takes 5 minutes to get situated. And then you've got to come back out. Like, to be able to just adjust that quickly, and they do that before, like before the iPads were allowed, you have to adjust this quickly, but now it's even quicker, and they shut things down. And even in that first half, when Michigan State puts up 186 yards or whatever, the running was still like 3 yards a carry, and it's kind of like last week. Like that's fine. You're okay with that, as long as there are no big hits. And what was the longest play of the day for Michigan State? 19 yards and on the ground, and 26
through the air.
Yeah.
Well, they had a 20, they had a 19, a 24, a 25, and a 26 through the air.
And they're all like in the span of the first half, and it was a lot of chunks where it's like this is dangerous. This is not good. And as I said earlier, this game could have gone a very different way without those early turnovers from Michigan State, and if they catch the one that Will Howard tried to give away.
Yeah. Gavin Whitaker, super chat, says, why is our defense a second half defense? I think this is partly that the offense comes out and adjusts to what, the offense has their scripted first series, and it feels like that almost always is somewhat successful. Obviously, Michigan State didn't score, but they moved the ball down the field. I think it's sort of a little bit of the offense just sort of by nature is going to be able to sort of dictate things off the start, and then the defense sort of counter punches. There's also just a pure talent thing and a depth thing where your depth is going to win out later. But the defense definitely looked a little ragged in the first half. I think one of the things that's going to make it difficult for people to know exactly how they feel about this game is, they held Michigan State to 7 points, and the first half drives.
Look at the first 4 drives all into OSU territory.
Yeah, 7 plays, 55 yards, 5 plays, 64 yards, 1 play, 12 yards for a touchdown, and then 9 plays, 59 yards.
And you get 7 points out of that.
Yeah, and then 7 points out of that, and then -2, -6, 6, 14, -1, 16, -2, 32 yards on the last one. It is definitely a second half defense. Do you chalk that up to scheme? Do you chalk that up to personnel? Because I can kind of make an argument for either one.
Yeah, I think we hear from the players and coaches on both sides of the ball. When teams play Ohio State, everything that you prepared for, you're always going to see something different because teams have to create different things and gear different things towards Ohio State and try to find something new and try to come up with something that Ohio State hasn't seen to gain some sort of an advantage, because Ohio State comes into most games with every advantage. So you're trying to give them something they haven't seen. So I think there's some adjustment to that. But then once they start adjusting, I mean, to only get 7 points out of those first 4 drives and it being the 12-yard touchdown drive, the quick change, I think this is also part of why Michigan State is Michigan State.
Right.
And because this could have been, like I said, it could have been 24-21, either team in the third quarter, and it wasn't. Partly because Ohio State made plays. They forced 2 fumbles, and it's not like Aiden Childs or whomever just gave it away. Like, they were ripping the ball out, and they made plays there. So give Ohio State credit. But I mean, Michigan State did drive 55 yards on the first drive, 64 yards on the second drive, the 12-yard touchdown on the third drive, and then 59 yards on the fourth drive. That's a lot. But then it gets fixed, and I give credit to the defensive coaches for kind of nipping it in the bud completely.
Yeah, it definitely, as soon as it changed, man, it changed.
Yeah.
It was
done.
We'll get to this one later. I don't want to derail us too much, but we have, it just keeps going kind of the same way. And you can give up an early score, and it's not the end of the world. You can't do what Alabama did or Georgia did, where you give up 3 early touchdowns, boom, 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 and then you're trying to dig out of a pretty big hole. You can give up a touchdown here and there, and it's not the end of the world. Lathan Ransom, you mentioned them ripping the ball up. Lathan Ransom felt like he had a great game in terms of wasn't he involved in a couple of those fumbles?
Well, I know. I think Jordan Hancock forced the one.
Maybe I'm thinking of Jordan Hancock instead of Lathan Ransom.
Ransom fumbled, forced one too. So yeah, they both did. So one of them got the Aiden Childs one, and the other on the receiver downfield, which was another busted play essentially. And so the secondary had some issues. Davis and Igbinosin was getting picked on early.
Yeah, he
and
did
then
great first half.
And then they didn't. And Aiden Childs, you can see all of the potential there, but there's always going to be a couple of errant throws, and then like the interception to Denzel Burke. Denzel Burke was defending nobody. He was defending grass on that one, and the ball came to him. It's like, it's like, are you talking to me? Are you waving at me? And you wave at somebody. It's like, no, it was somebody. No, it was behind him.
In September. It was that was one where I was looking in. I'm like, where is it? I don't know who that was intended for. If it was not intended for Denzel Burke, I don't know who that was intended.
Cody Simon almost had an interception on a just kind of a Well, whatever.
Yeah,
YOLO.
YOLO.
Yeah.
Exactly. Throw up the YOLO ball. Wingman Ted says, great. Calling face masks this game was optional. I don't understand missing face mask calls like that.
Mhm.
The officiating, I didn't agree with the out of bounds, like late hit penalty that Michigan State got called for. That seemed
I heard it was kind of soft.
pretty tough. It was not a vicious hit. It was not 3 steps out of bounds. It was, he was a yard out of bounds. He had just stepped out of bounds. It was one where I had about 50-50 in my Twitter replies when I said that was a terrible call. But if that got called against Ohio State, people would have lost their minds. You don't have to completely dictate the whole game. And you called that, and it got chippy anyway. So you didn't even prevent it from getting chippy. But yeah, the face masks, I don't know if hands to the face with helmets coming off, not getting called, which has been all season long somehow, or ball carriers getting their heads twisted around on face masks and not getting called somehow. Like, how do you, I understand you're not going to call everything, and I understand you're going to miss some things. If the dude with the football is having his helmet spun around in his head, how do you miss that?
Yeah.
Jeremiah Smith on one of his catches got face masked on his way down and made the catch anyway.
I was talking with, I'm not going to name drop, but talking with somebody about, this epidemic of issues with refs. And I had to remind them, like there's hundreds of games every week, and there's a worst ref and a worst crew, and somebody is getting that worst ref and worst crew. So good luck to all of you, whoever that is.
Yeah. And this is the Big Ten. So this should be the best officials in the Midwest. And I'm sure they didn't have the single best Big Ten crew on this game, but that's probably going to be on the big noon game or the regular NBC primetime game.
Yeah, when you're like the third NBC broadcast crew, you're probably not getting the top Big Ten refs.
Yeah, I heard that was not outstanding.
I heard the same.
All right, so where do we want to go from here? Oh, we've talked a little defense, we've talked a little offense. We should talk a little special teams, just because we talked a little special teams last week because the special teams had a terrible, horrible, no good, very bad day. The special teams tonight, fine.
Yeah.
All the kickoffs stayed within the field of play.
Inbounds.
Just stop it and start it again.
Stop it.
Yep. The every kickoff just within the field of play, made all their placements. Punting seemed fine.
Adequate. 2 of the 3 punts inside the 20. You're going to take that every time.
Yeah.
Not a great average, but that's because you're pinning them.
Yeah, I don't remember any penalties on special teams.
Brandon Innes was okay in returns. He's always got that potential back there. So yeah, I had no issues with with anything special teams wise. So they didn't screw anything up, which is on the road at night is a positive thing. You'll take that every time.
Yeah, you don't need the special teams to.
Did you see Emeka Ibuka as the kick returner?
I did not. They didn't field the kick all
Yeah,
night, so
no, he was the #1 kick returner and had Lorenzo Styles next to him to block. So it was interesting that he was the guy back there now.
Interesting. I didn't notice that. Yeah, Lorenzo Styles has been back there as one of the blockers all year. I didn't notice that it was Emeka tonight. Interesting. All right. Just looking through to see if there's anything else really notable on the box score before we maybe we start taking some questions. Anything else you can think of that we need to hit?
We have Jonathan Smith sound.
Oh, we do have Jonathan Smith sound. Okay, so do we want to go to Jonathan Smith?
We can. It's his interest, opening comments, and then a question I asked him about Jeremiah.
Okay, so we're going to go to some clips from Michigan State head coach Jeremiah Smith. Well, he kind of was.
Yeah.
He was kind of running the show tonight in a lot of ways. Jonathan Smith, Michigan State head coach Jonathan Smith, just his opening comments, and then you'll hear Kevin Noon ask him a question about Jeremiah Smith.
Go here. Well, let me start. Credit to Ohio State. That's a good football team, well coached. Thought they played hard, talented, kind of as we expected. I do think in the first half we did not help ourselves with just some self-inflicted, turning the ball over a couple of times. I mean, opening drive would go down. Well, first of all, their opening drive, find a way to get them, hold them to a field goal in the red zone, which would take against that team. Go down there, it's 4th and 1 on our 20 going in. We can't get that done. fast forward, we turned the ball over twice in our red zone going in again, and that was painful. We got an opportunity to make a stop in the end zone on defense, drop an interception, and then even they scored late to make it 24-7 at the half on a punt that we got to be better on. Field position's pretty good. They go down and separate the thing, and so missed opportunities in the first half. And then the third quarter we did not come out and get anything done, turn the thing over, give them a short field, and then kind of separate from there. And so again, that's a good football team. I did tell our team, I didn't feel like there was a bunch of snaps out there that we were just overwhelmed. Oh, they got too much talent. They're too physical. That's a really good team, one of the best teams in the country. But trying to encourage our guys that we can go toe-to-toe if we can finish on some things and get back to some details on ball security and getting off the field on third down.
Coach, you mentioned Jeremiah Smith and the one-handed catches. Obviously, you probably watched him on film leading up to the game as advertised. I mean, how do you go at a guy like that?
Yeah, you want to challenge him. Sometimes you want to affect the passer more than just affecting that one-on-one matchup or double team. And then if you can get the quarterback off the spot, but again, they got weapons in multiple spots, schematically, Chip, Brian. Those guys do a good job, and so it's a tough task.
I always with Jonathan Smith and anybody like the Peacock crowd or the Peacock play-by-play. Anytime people really get the firsthand opportunity to to watch Jeremiah Smith and he does something and to see their reactions and their thoughts on it and their comments of it, it's always entertaining to me that they're getting this firsthand look. Jonathan Smith not as happy and as joyous as perhaps the television crew.
Yeah. It's a little like seeing the Grand Canyon, I think, where not to compare him to one of America's great natural wonders, but you see photos of the Grand Canyon and it's like, oh, I see the Grand Canyon. And then you go to the Grand Canyon and it's like, wow, this is somehow much more incredible and awe-inspiring than even, the photos can possibly do justice. That's kind of the Jeremiah Smith experience where it's just, this legend started from when he first got to campus, and you immediately started hearing, oh, this kid's different. Like, this kid is very different. And then we got through spring camp, and we started talking about it that way, because as soon as you see it, it was kind of like, oh, hey, this guy keeps going to mossing, like really good defensive backs, and he's been a college student for about 8 weeks.
Well,
it's just,
and
it just has gone from there. I had someone tell me tonight that he thought, Jeremiah Smith coming in, he thought Jeremiah Smith was going to be the best wide receiver in Ohio State history coming into the program. And he said, he's exceeded my expectations already.
Well, he's certainly matched and exceeded most, but I will say Ryan Williams went for like 177 tonight and continues to light things up, the Alabama freshman receiver. But with Jeremiah, when he only played a half of the spring game, it's like, well, okay, he's a starter.
Yeah.
And that was confirmed. Like, you see him make plays in the spring and he's running with the ones. And it took me a while to come around to the fact that he would be starting, but I was there by like the first spring practice. But afterwards I'm like, okay, I've seen enough. It's not all just hype and bluster, the next great thing. It's like, no, I've seen it now. And I believe it, and everybody else gets to see it and believe it. And as I said earlier, you look forward to seeing him do something else next time, because there's always going to be a something else. There's going to be 2.5 more years of next time, 2 7/10 more of next time that you're going to have with him. So enjoy it. I think Emeka Egbuka said the same thing. You got a few years with him, enjoy it, because it's going to be special. And that's the eventual all-time leading receiver in Ohio State history, Emeka Egbuka, saying that.
Well, and I keep thinking, it's just like every once in a while, I'll just have this thought flash in my head. We're going to get to watch Jeremiah Smith go against Will Johnson. That's going to be dynamite. That's going to be David Boston, Charles Woodson type. We'll see how it goes, but that's going to be two guys who are potentially like top 5 future picks going head to head. I think if I'm Michigan, I think I just tell Will Johnson, see the guy wearing number 4, follow him, and we just have to figure everything else out, because I think you look at the drop off between before, between Will Johnson and everyone else in that cornerback room, that's going to go poorly if they put anyone other than him on there.
Yeah, and you wonder if then you just operate it, if Ohio State would operate the way Texas did and just not throw his way. But I don't think you're just going to ignore Jeremiah Smith. You're still going to throw the ball his way. I mean, I think 6 targets for 5 catches. You're not just going to – he's too valuable to you and too good to not involve him in the offense.
Well, and I put this on Twitter, and this is like kind of a joke, but also kind of not a joke. Football's very complicated. This is not Tecmo Super Bowl where it's just like, give the ball to Bo Jackson and he's going to run circles around everyone and score a touchdown. But every time they have a drive and they don't throw a ball Jeremiah Smith's way, it's kind of like, there we
Hey,
go.
we're
Sorry.
back. Jeremiah Smith.
Jeremiah Smith. Every time they have a drive and they don't throw the ball Jeremiah Smith, it's kind of like, it was kind of a waste.
What are we doing here?
It feels like you've got a guy who can do all of these cool things. You should have him go out there and do all of these cool things.
Yeah, but I mean, did Michael Knight take Kit to get groceries? No, he only used them on missions.
Okay, listen. I've compared Jeremiah Smith to the Grand Canyon.
Okay.
Comparing him to Knight Rider, to Kit from Knight Rider,
Right.
Tony, come on. Like, let's keep it realistic. Come on.
Night boat.
Oh, man.
All right, let's get back to the show.
Always defense, always in a canal or a fjord, always. Jordan B says Kevin Newton is getting tarmacked if there's one more interruption.
That's right, Kevin. The tarmac.
Is it recording? I can't see from here.
You're number one time.
All right. Yeah.
I'll take these 2 right off the air.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
Well, somebody will.
all right. So I know we have a graphic about Jeremiah Smith.
Okay,
Pull
let's
that,
see it.
Pull that up right now, because we're talking about him. Let's pull it up. This is the truth. Jeremiah Smith, the truth. Yeah. No arguments. He is the truth. The numbers there sort of speak for themselves.
Yep, and got his first career carry as an Ohio State Buckeye and went 19 yards, end around. The way Chip Kelly is calling plays right now, he had Michigan State's head spinning and in different directions, and then you just pull that out, and it's like, that was easy. So much of this looks easy, the way they're operating and calling stuff off of stuff, and you see the freshman numbers there.
Freshman receiving touchdowns. Think about how good Garrett Wilson was in 2019 as a true freshman. The picture of him soaring over the Clemson defensive backs in the Fiesta Bowl. Big touchdown against Michigan. Scored a long touchdown against Miami very early in the season, where he was already starting to roll up stats very early in the season. Jeremiah Smith has already tied Garrett Wilson. It is still September. It is September right now as we are speaking. Jeremiah Smith already tied for the number 3 most receiving touchdowns in a season, and that doesn't include the end around that he got.
Yeah.
Which, if he had gone in front of Will Howard instead of behind Will Howard, he would have 6.
I can't find it now, or I'm not going to be able to look it up. I do wonder, how often has an Ohio State receiver started with 4 touchdowns in 4 consecutive games? If Marvin did it last year, and I can look at it, because he has scored in every single game, correct?
Yes, he has. And I don't want to have stuff get lost here, because it's very easy to just start talking about Jeremiah Smith and just not stop talking about Jeremiah Smith. We need to have a little bit of an Emeka Egbuka conversation here too, because he is just so steady, so reliable. He is now 11th all time. Poor Garrett Wilson catching strays today. He jumped. Emeka Egbuka jumps Garrett Wilson, now the 11th in career receiving yards in Ohio State history. Look at those names. Those are big names. He's past Joey Gallo. He's past Ted Ginn. He's past D. Miller. He's past Garrett Wilson now. Doug Donnelly next. Antonio Holmes within striking distance. He's now tied Corey Philly Brown for 8th all-time in career receptions with 145. Again, ahead of Garrett Wilson, ahead of Paris Campbell, ahead of Antonio Holmes. Gary Williams, former Maryland basketball coach,
That's
Gary
right.
Williams, and Ohio State basketball coach. no relation.
No.
He is next on the list. But again, Garrett Wilson, this is Emeka Egbuka passing Garrett Wilson in all these categories, or Jeremiah Smith tying Garrett Wilson already in some of these categories. Garrett Wilson is a great NFL receiver. First round. I mean, this is not like, oh, well, he's passing some guy who caught 60 passes in 1985 from Jim Carsados.
You're talking about somebody who is in the discussion for Ohio State receiver Mount Rushmore and Garrett Wilson.
Yeah.
And one of the best NFL receivers from Ohio State. And I just looked, Marvin Harrison never did touchdowns in the first 4 games. And I assume if he didn't, I will, and I just looked to see the game notes.
As a true freshman, you mean?
No, at all.
Oh, at all?
In the first 4 games.
Oh, boy.
So this is some very rare. Like, who else? Yeah. I don't think Garrett Wilson. Maybe Chris Olave. I can continue to look, but nothing in the post-game notes about this. But
what about Terry Glenn?
That's a possibility in 95.
I don't remember if he caught a touchdown in the Boston College game or not.
I know Eddie George did not rush for 100 yards in that game. That was the only game he did not rush for. But again, that's a project for tomorrow for somebody.
That's not something we need to research live on air. One thing we can do live on air is talk about Travion Henderson as well, because we talked about him a little bit ago. Went down, looked like, oh boy, that might be bad, and then just right back in the game, and it was fine. He is career rushing yards. Here's another guy in just the Ohio State career rushing rankings. There he goes. Passes Carlos Snow, passes Michael Wiley, passes Antonio Pittman. He is 12th all time now, right behind Pepe Pearson, right behind Carlos Hyde. I mean, those are Pepe Pearson probably going to get next week.
Yep.
Carlos Hyde, with a big day, he could potentially get got too.
Travion Henderson now has, I believe, 31 carries in 4 games. He came into this one with 24, 7 carries in this one. Like,
he's barely getting the ball.
He's like a part-time wrestler who only shows up for pay-per-views.
Yeah.
It's like, come on, get on the road, go to some house shows.
Yeah, no,
he won't.
He is just, but he is, Tony, a great worker.
He is a great worker. And he's very good. he's an enhancement talent. No, the blitz pickups that he's done, the physicality that he's run with and played with, and it was good to see them throwing the ball to the running backs as well tonight. So they're continuing to just expand this offense and include more options. And we saw the speed option again in this one. It's funny, like whenever Quinshon Judkins starts getting a little bit outside, you just expect him now to come through the defense and spit out the other end and just be like, okay, there he's gone. But didn't happen today. It'll happen, one of these upcoming games again. And Travion Henderson with a long run of 37. The potential is there anytime they touch the football, and that's terrifying for defensive coaches, because you have to be not necessarily perfect, but if you screw up, then they're going to take advantage.
Yeah, you can't make a mistake against this Ohio State team, because they are going to make you pay, whether it's on the ground or through the air. The only spot that you really you look and you kind of go, well, a mistake there is going to be 12 yards, and it's tight end. The tight end room has just been sort of okay, efficient. But why would you throw the ball to the tight end when you could hand the ball to Quinshon Judkins or Travion Henderson, or throw the ball to Carnell Tate or Emeka Egbuka or Jeremiah Smith, or even have Will Howard run the ball? Why? The tight ends are about the 12th and 13th best options on this team in terms of, sure, you use them every once in a while just to sort of keep people honest. The tight ends are Colston Loveland is Michigan's best receiving threat. The tight ends for Ohio State are way, way, way down the list, and you're going to have a much more explosive offense if your tight ends are way, way, way down the list.
Will Kazmarek getting that personal foul after he pancaked a dude and then told him about it as well.
That what that was?
That's what that was. He took him to the ground and kind of just slammed his shoulders again while he was down there for good measure, and they're like, that's a flag. And I think it was at a drive killer at that point. It ended up in a field goal.
That was the first Buckeye drive
of
the game.
That was a really good drive.
That was so efficient. A drive that, as they're coming down the field, it was like, well, this is going to be a touchdown, sort of obviously. And then that turned it into what, 1st and 25 or whatever.
Like
that completely derailed it. We talk about the 2nd and 25. We talk all the time about, hey, a holding penalty could really kill your drive. a personal foul is an extra 5 yards. What was interesting to me is sometimes you'll see a guy take a penalty like that. That's not a, aggressive penalty. It's just that wasn't a great choice kind of penalty. And then you don't see him for three series or something. He was back in there pretty much immediately, wasn't he? He was.
Yeah, I think so.
I felt like we didn't, which I think tells you a lot about what they think of him in terms of how important he might be in terms of blocking. Because Jeremiah Smith was the same thing. Jeremiah Smith got in that kind of shoving match. It looked a lot like the David Boston, Charles Woodson kind of face mask grabbing thing. And it was like, oh boy, is he going to get unsportsmanlike or whatever? And they pulled him for one play.
Yeah.
And then right back in there. I said to our buddy Mark Coons, who was on the sideline, that Jeremiah Smith this was already after he had scored at least one of the touchdowns, maybe a couple of the touchdowns. And I said, he's a little like Mongo to me. Like, oh, don't do that. Don't shoot him. You'll just make him mad. Like, are you grabbing his face mask? Do you know what he's going to do to you? It just feels like whatever you want to lull him to sleep. You don't want to make him upset.
There's a rule in press box: no cheering in the press box. It always gets violated in Michigan State because of some random Michigan State people that are in the press box. But there is often, not often, but at times there are like wows and oohs and ahs. And the Jeremiah Smith touchdown catch took me immediately back to Braxton Miller's spin move at Virginia Tech, where the entire press box is like, oh my God, holy crap. And that was right up there with anything I've ever experienced in the press box in terms of just people being wowed by what you've just seen.
Yeah, that was legitimately a wow thing. I am at this point like extremely jaded and not. There were a couple like holy craps that just like the one-handed catch was a holy crap. Him going up way up was a holy crap, and that was separated by 3 or 4 plays or something like that. Just amazing. Yeah, here's the play where he went way up there. Okay, I think hopefully we have a sequence. Yeah, he goes up there. That's the first shot of the sequence. I think.
Yeah,
he goes way up. One hands it. Then he gets face masked on the way down, and still hangs on to it. This is the other one. This is the touchdown.
The best part about
that's him one-handing it right there. That is real hard to do because he's got basically 4 fingers on the football. It was thrown. It's an out. You got to put some zip on an out to not have it be a lollipop. Grabs it, one hand, both of them. Those are two of the best catches you're going to see in college football this year, and it was separated by 5 plays.
Yeah, and my favorite part about the second or the touchdown catch, maybe the second or third in the sequence is everybody in the background.
Oh yeah,
all of the reactions from the people. Some are like blown away, others are like, "This is not good." Like the Michigan State sideline is like, oh. So,
yeah, there were some.
You can check out Tom's Twitter.
Yeah,
and you'll see the photos there.
Yeah, it was. Or Tony, check out the Huddle Board presented by Jeff Ruby's Columbus. We post a lot of content on our game thread there. Lots of videos and photos and all that kind of stuff. So, Tony, this would actually be a great time for people to sign up to become members at BuckeyeHuddle.com because right now we are running a flash sale, $4.99 for your first month. Get access to all of our great content. Tony, Kevin, and I covering the team, are covering recruiting, got our whole X's and O's team. You heard from some of them earlier on the show. Lots of great content there, plus a really fun, active community. Yeah. Lots of people posting tonight. There was a lot of thoughts shared in the game thread.
There's already an X's and O's thread going on as well. So
if you like the Ross Fulton X's and O's shows on the Buckeyes Tomorrow Morning feed, you will love being a member there because we have 4 X's and O's guys. You got Devin and Justin and Mickey, who you saw earlier, and Ross as well. So
and me. Well, the other 4.
You're more of an alphabet soup guy, and sometimes it spills.
I'm more of the J's and the K's.
Do we want to hit a couple questions?
Yes, we do.
Let's hit some questions right now. Geiger Lee says, what do you think should be done to resolve the opposing defense is taking too long to get on the field? Well, I saw that and I was like,
I'm waiting.
I'm watching them kind of jogging on the field, and then the Michigan State defensive linemen, like slowly one by one. It was just kind of like a series of dominoes, very slowly going. I'm looking for Ryan Day on the sideline. I'm like, oh man, Vesuvius is going to blow if they have to take a timeout.
I mean, well, then they had the perfect response. They got the snap, or the ref moved out of the way with about 4 seconds left. And then I believe that was a touchdown play, if I'm correct. And so that's the perfect response to that. But yeah, we were all like, uh-oh. Uh-oh. And then there was a penalty on that one after the play. And I was like, I wonder if Day got flagged for sharing some emotional thoughts, but it was just a sideline warning. So yeah, they are taking it, and it's almost like now let's just try to set Ryan Day off. Let's slow it down.
I wonder if some of it, like last week, they subbed with 20. Ohio State subbed with 21 seconds on the play clock, something like that. I think some of this is on Ohio State not subbing early enough. I don't know what is a reasonable amount of time, and I'm not asking you to do this. It feels like the NCAA officiating folks should be able to say, okay, if they sub, if the offense subs, you have 15 seconds or 12 seconds or 18 seconds, whatever the magic number is, that you see that they're subbing and you see who's coming in and who's going out. You have 15 seconds or 12 seconds. Because then if the offense subs at 28, well, guess what? Then you're going to mark the ball for play after X amount of time. If the offense subs at 17 seconds and the defense gets 18 seconds to respond, well, guess what? That's on the offense. Well, that seems like the easiest, cleanest answer to make.
And I think it was last week, Day said when we subbed at 21, that's always enough.
Yeah.
And so I wonder if that's also part of the analytics package that they get in terms of all of the info on time and in place in terms of what.
If you know that, that's fine.
But that doesn't mean
the officiating crew know that?
It's like when you say, well, it's generally enough, that means it's not always enough.
Yeah.
So there's two sides to that.
Bomo says MSU has some big dudes, some fast dudes, and well coached. I will say Jonathan Smith is. I think in my article my score prediction, I said they're going to get it. They're going to get an easy one this week. It is not going to be so easy the next time they're here. He says our defense is way better than I think most anyone thinks. Just because we beat them 38-7 doesn't mean we can't beat a better team by more.
Well, I mean that's every game is its own little universe, and I do think they can beat a better team by more. But I also think that if you don't adjust as well as you did in this one, then bounces, turnovers that don't happen, it can be a very close game. This game could have been very close if not for those turnovers. Brian Day said that's still part of the game. It is, but you can't count on turnovers because this is the first time in 3 games that they've had turnovers. They had turnovers, forced some turnovers in the first game, didn't force any in the next 2. Now they forced some more in this one. This is a turnover-prone team.
Yeah.
So maybe you're just expecting that, and also making it happen. It's like I think we'll have better success if we start grabbing at the ball against this team.
Yeah.
As opposed to some other teams where you can do it, but make sure you're wrapping up. I think Michigan State allows themselves to be turned over, but Ohio State was fortunate in this one that it wasn't closer. I think Ohio State was always going to win, but anytime you keep it close on the road, like there's always the potential for something to go bad. One interception can change the outcome, and you almost saw that pick 6 that Michigan State almost had.
Yeah. Well, and that goes back to Ryan Day's idea about leaving no doubt. You leave yourself outside the margin of error where, you might have something weird happen. You might have a fluky bounce. You might have a bad call. You might have whatever. Give yourself enough margin where that one bad call, that one bad bounce, whatever, isn't the difference between winning and losing. It isn't the difference between being up 1 score or up 2 scores, and boy, this is a 1-score game in the fourth quarter. And they definitely played to that point and played to that standard. Here's another one. Emeka dropped 2 big balls, and he's the mentor. That can't happen, though he made up for it with a big touchdown and some other nice catches. This is Did he look like, there was one that I thought he looked like he might have been looking for contact, kind of, it was a little bit of a slant or something, and it just looked like he was anticipating the safety being there, and
Yeah,
and
the
then
first one
safety wasn't there.
First one, I think he was running before he had it. The second one, there was going to be some contact, and maybe he was preparing himself for that one. But his touchdown catch, fantastic throw by Will Howard, really good coverage. I thought that was going to be knocked down. It wasn't. And he turned it upfield, getting him the ball more, and whether it's the screens or some mid-level downfield stuff. 11 targets, I think is. I wonder. I'm sure he's had more, but not a lot more.
It's hard to get much more than that. I mean, if you get into 14 and 15 targets, that's about as high as you can.
With like in 2022 when Jackson Smith and Jigba was out, and it was just Marvin and Emeka.
Yeah.
Probably had some 12, 13s in there.
Ethan says, quit playing 10 yards off the ball on second.
Well,
and 2.
that one, even Denzel Burke, there was one where Denzel Burke was very frustrated. It looked like Aiden Childs just checked it, and it was like 2nd and 2 or something, and he was 10 yards off because that's what he was told to do. Childs just quick threw it out there, and they picked up the first down, and Burke is like yelling at the sideline, like,
yeah,
what am I supposed to do? Let's come on, let's get closer to the line of scrimmage. Let's play some defense.
Jordan says, am I being too much of an optimistic fan? I'm starting to get real tired of the hypercritical takes immediately after a good win. Just gets kind of old. I think it depends on who you're talking about, because I think there are people who are never, ever happy.
Right.
And that's one thing. And then there are people who are looking at the defense. And I think this is not a team that's in its final form right now. This is a team that still has improvements to make. And I think what's broadly true of just about every team in the country is if they played the way they played tonight, they're not going to necessarily be able to win every single college football playoff game playing exactly that way. That's true of every team in the nation, because teams are going to improve over the course of the season. So I think there's a certain amount of it's just sort of perspective on you're not in your final form yet. You want to be the team that peaks at the end of the season. Because the teams that think about the 2014 Buckeyes, their final home game of the season, or next to penultimate, Tony, home game of the season was against Indiana. And they were losing to the Indiana Hoosiers in the third quarter.
Mm-hmm.
And then Jalen Marshall blew up in the fourth quarter and they won. And it's like, well, but they were losing to Indiana in the third quarter. This team is doomed. And then the next week, JT Barrett breaks his ankle and they beat Michigan, but it was close. It was very close late. And then they scored a couple touchdowns to pull away in the fourth quarter. And it's like, well, they go to the Big Ten championship game and they've got this guy who hasn't played, has barely played, and he's not here to play school. And
right.
They're playing Michigan, they're playing Wisconsin, and how are they going to do against Wisconsin? How can they possibly, we've seen this team get Indiana put up points. How are they going to possibly stop Melvin Gordon in Wisconsin? And then it just kicked in, and then they played the 3 best games of the season again, and then they won. And that's the process. They were not beating everyone 59-0 all season. Ezekiel Elliott was not running for 200 yards a game all season. That happened right at the end of the season. This is a process, and I think it's easy to get caught up in a game, especially if you look at people during the games where you don't know what the outcome is. It's a little easier to look back and be a little more rational about it and a little bit more objective about it and say, look, they won. Was it perfect? No, but it was pretty good. There are definitely still issues to be worked out. So I think you're not I don't think you're being, unrealistic about the fact that people are probably being overly pessimistic sometimes, but
it's just the two combine when things aren't going well. And I think it creates like an echo, because they did go well in the second half, but that first half still happened. And I wrote this morning about 10 things people will be saying after this game. And one of them was that this won't be good enough against Oregon. And that's going to be a refrain for every game, because Oregon is built up into this, gigantic entity that is awaiting Ohio State when, Oregon has not always played all that well. And for most of Oregon's games, you could say they're not going to be able to beat Ohio State playing like this. And sometimes Buckeye fans just look at Ohio State and see Ohio State's flaws and ignore everybody else's flaws, because they only view Georgia or Alabama or Michigan at their perfection. And it's like, well, how are we ever supposed to beat that team when they're perfect? And it's, well, you're not.
Right.
You're not supposed to beat a perfect opponent, and you won't. If you get a perfect opponent, don't even worry about it because you could have done anything anyway.
Yeah.
But you're not going to get that, and there are going to be flaws. There are going to be mistakes. Take advantage of the mistakes like Ohio State did today. Give up some yards. I think it was Cody Simon or Jordan Hancock said we played bend but don't break. We're bend but don't break defense when they have to be, and they needed to be today, and it worked out for them. But it still happened. And those drives, those 4 drives still happened, and that's a concern. But the second half also happened. Like I don't know how to. One doesn't cancel the other out. They both happened.
Yeah.
But you'd rather be a second half defense than a first half defense.
Yeah, for sure. You would much rather be a second half defense than a first half defense because if you don't believe us, think about all the stats you've heard about the Ohio State-Michigan series the last few years and how the Ohio State defense has performed in the second half.
Yeah,
so
that's true. Hey, take that to the bank.
And here's one this is a smooth transition from Jordan to Jamie. Jamie says, can we talk about how bad Sonny Styles played and has played all year? I have no perspective on his performance tonight whatsoever. So was there something that was glaring?
Well, is it glaring? It's apparent.
Okay.
And now he is still 4 games into being a full-time linebacker.
Right.
So he's going to get better, but there seem to be some delays. The tackling is still a bit of an issue. He's so athletic, though, that I think I don't think they're going to take him off the field, but also they played 3 linebackers quite a bit in this one. And I do wonder if at some point do we just see Cody Simon, Arvell Reese, Cody Simon playing the will, which we mentioned this morning. And last week wasn't great for Sonny Styles. It gets to the point where I don't think they want to take him off the field too much because they want him to continue to develop, and they need him to continue to develop, especially now that they've kind of moved on a little bit from C.J. Hicks, even though he got into this game. I think he got into this game because other people were struggling, and they're just trying to find something.
Yeah.
And he had a sack later in the game, but the linebackers were not good in the first half, and then things are fine in the second half. Like it's two different games basically, but there are issues at linebacker. I don't think you solve them by not playing somebody like with Sonny. He's got to continue to develop, but I don't know how long that you can go if he doesn't get better. And the season is still very early right now.
Right. It feels, I'm sure, to people like, well, it's already almost October, and that October is the middle of the football season. We're now 4 games into the regular season, so you're a third of the way through the regular season now. You're maybe a quarter of the way through the entire season. You're 4 games in. You could have very easily have 12 more games left this season. That's what used to constitute an entire season. So yeah, you are still very early. I think they would love to have more answers than they do in certain spots on that defense, because this was probably the last of the I don't even need to think about. I can be real cavalier with my language in terms of how much Michigan State doesn't have a chance to beat them. Michigan State could have beaten them, but it would have taken, being +5 in turnovers kind of thing. Next week with Iowa can, how they say Lake Lanier in Atlanta is haunted, and just people feel hands reaching up and pulling them down into the water and drowning them. That can be the Iowa defense. The Iowa defense can drag you down and drown you. I don't expect that to happen, but now you're in that portion of the schedule where now you've got that, and then you got a real tough game in a couple weeks in Eugene. So they need to figure out some answers sooner rather than later.
Yeah, and even offensively, things aren't perfect. But again, if you're expecting perfection, you're always going to be upset because you're still playing against an opponent that is going to create issues. So I think when you, as Ryan Day said with Will Howard, you look at the sum of the parts, the sum of all of it, and it was a good game. The interception, it's not great. And one other play, not great. But overall, you complete over 2/3 of your passes, 250 yards. These are things that you're going to account for 3 touchdowns. That's what you want your quarterback to do. And you'd love him to eliminate mistakes, but that's very, very rare for a quarterback to do.
Yeah, definitely. Stephen Cherry says, any score predictions for Iowa? I say 40-13 Buckeyes. I would be pretty surprised if they got to 40 points on the Iowa defense. Maybe they score a defensive touchdown, or you get a couple short fields or something like
I think
that.
you need some help.
You need, just in terms of Ohio State putting together drives of 50 yards or more, drives that start in their own territory. I think I could see Ohio State scoring 3 to 4 touchdowns of that length, and you kick a field goal too when you get to 24, and maybe you get I would be probably more like in the high 20s, low 30s. This is going to be a game where you're probably a little bit frustrated. That's the nature of playing Iowa football.
I might go with the same score I went with this week of 34-13.
Yeah. I mean,
but 34 seems like a pretty good number against an Iowa defense.
Yeah. Yeah. And the other question is 13. How many safeties does Iowa get?
Maybe we use this score right here, 38-7.
They get to 13 with 3 safeties and a defensive touchdown. How about this one? I love Marv, don't get me wrong, but Jeremiah Smith and Emeka could end up being my favorite duo since Devin Smith and Michael Thomas. That's there've been some real good duos here, but they're up there.
Well, and that's like one of those summer stories or summer shows in terms of best duos, and where do these guys rank? Ted Ginn, Santonio Holmes, D. Miller, David Boston, Marvin and Emeka, Jeremiah and Emeka, Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave. Come on, there are a number of duos that you could throw out there. Kenyon Rambo, Reggie Germany,
Paris Campbell, Terry McLaurin. That was a good one. Yeah, they've had some great wide receivers there over the years.
Noah Brown, Curtis Samuel.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, they've had some great wide receivers over the years in a way that is extremely unusual for any kind of program to have. But yeah, you can already see Jeremiah Smith breaking the curve. He's the kid who's the curve wrecker sitting in the back of the class, and he's scoring 100 on the test that everyone else is scoring is a 73 on, and it's like, well, sorry.
Is this the same guy that asks, "Hey, you forgot to give us homework"?
Well, no, I don't think he's that guy. I think he's just very smart. I don't think he's looking for. Now he is very hardworking.
Yeah, well, he will study, but also Brad's got a big brain.
Big brain on Brad. Which did you know?
Yes.
Okay. Wow. Jeez. Wingman Ted says Gabe Powers needs to see the field more. That's my biggest takeaway from the linebackers today. Gabe Powers had a big hit. There was I said this earlier. There was some hitting out there, but Gabe Powers had a big hit.
I think that was the one that could be heard in the press box as well, and he laid on somebody. Speaking of stuff that could be heard in the press box, Tom, the halftime show, which I believe is the only time it rained the entire night, from what I was told.
No, it rained at the end of the game. I didn't realize it rained during halftime because I said it was the first time it rained, late in the fourth quarter, but I was underneath editing photos.
The halftime show, some sort of some flutes and the bugles and some woodwinds and stuff piped directly into the press box. Very loud, very shrill. No other band music, just a bunch of, woodwinds and stuff right into the
jazz flute.
It did sound a little bit like jazz flute, basically from Anchorman.
Did anyone shoot fire out of the end of their flute? Because that would be
no, sadly. But there was some complaining. There's no cheering in the press box. Plenty of jeering at halftime. I can tell you that.
Zach says I was at the game, and when Will Howard got injured, it was pretty disappointing to hear the student section chanting "F Ohio."
Yes, you can hear that in the press box as well.
Yeah, that has become a thing, and it's like. I guess we're all mom and dad can't ground me now. I learned a new word and I'm gonna use it.
It's disappointing. I never cussed in college, and I hate to see other people doing it.
Well, it's not like it's a really fun original thing. It's like Rutgers does this, Indiana does this. Okay, that's fine, but
Miami of Ohio does it.
This feels like a game where this is a little bit of why can't we all just get along thing. Why don't the two of you guys, two fan bases, just focus on Michigan?
Right.
What do you guys think about Michigan? Oh, you don't like them? Well, sounds like great. You'll have lots to talk about.
The enemy of my enemy is my friend.
Yeah,
that sort of thing.
Mike Ferguson wants to know the over/under on Waffle House fights in Tuscaloosa.
Well, I mean, they got the win, so generally the fighting is lowered.
Mhm.
Now, couch is being burned.
Well, there are gonna be Georgia fans going in those Waffle Houses tonight. That's the
I
thing.
wouldn't do that.
Now, if Georgia had won, if Georgia had come back,
Oh.
the over/under on number of Waffle House fights in Tuscaloosa would have been infinity.
So,
yeah, 100%.
Did you see how I didn't see the play, but you know how Alabama got the lead back?
No, I know nothing about that game
Oh.
other than the fact that Alabama was up by 1,000,000 and all of a sudden Georgia had the lead and then Alabama took it back on a 70-yard touchdown
It
or
was
something.
it was like 30-7 at the half.
Uh-huh.
And Georgia came back to take a lead 33-30 or 34-33. And then like 20 seconds later, Ryan Williams went 75 yards to get the lead back for Alabama with like 2 minutes to go. And so yes, an incredible game that a lot of people tuned out for probably at the half.
Yep. All right. So here's a super chat from Mike Ferguson. We didn't get to it earlier. Wanted to get to it
Oh
now.
no.
It says pickled egg eating challenge idea. 10-minute limit. Number of eggs equals the score of the Iowa game. Number of eggs equal to the score of the Iowa game. So I guess the number of eggs equaling, like if Iowa scores 10 points, you got to eat 10 eggs kind of thing.
Oh.
Now, I am not a big pickled egg person. I would do deviled eggs.
Oh, easy. Deviled eggs. Yeah. Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Most is like only has pickled eggs.
Yeah.
No, but I don't know if I've had a pickled egg. I will tell you this. As a kid, my grandmother would always have Sunday dinners after church, and she'd make all the food, and they would have pickled beets, which I would have, and it's like you gotta have a little bit of it. I don't know that I ever did the pickled eggs, and I know you guys think I grew up in bars where they had pickled eggs. I did, but I never had any of the pickled eggs from the bars because
Just the cigarettes.
just to sit. No, because like you would think you'd get tongs to get the pickled eggs out. Not necessarily because your hands work just as well. So, but it's okay. It's pickled. It's all sterile. Another reason why I didn't eat the pickled eggs. I don't know that I've ever had a pickled egg. Basically, is what I'm saying. But I know what it would taste like.
I'm just picturing everyone with their nicotine stained
Yes, correct.
1980s fingers reaching into
Yeah.
the.
Correct.
Warpug says the polls will have Ohio State number 4 this week.
Alabama was going to be number one. Well, they may be number one now.
Well, I
Yeah.
think Alabama.
Struggled.
Yeah, Alabama's number 1. I think 'cause it feels like they have been pretty diligent about doing resume ranking, and right now Alabama has the best win, so Alabama is going to be your number 1, I would think. I don't know how, without having seen that game, I don't really know how much to chalk Georgia up to, like, hey, they look terrible, and this is a major flaw, or just.
Mhm.
Sometimes you come out of
Sometimes
the game
it's-
slow.
yeah.
Like, without having seen the game, I don't really know how to interpret that.
Yeah, I mean, Alabama's offense is moving up and down the field on them and stopping the defense. So then, who is two like Ole Miss lost? So they're kind of
Well,
they're out of the picture.
You gotta have
Texas.
Texas. They did win, so
So Texas. How does Ohio State drop to 4?
I think the idea is that Georgia is going to, even though they lost, stay ahead
Well,
of
I mean,
Ohio State.
Georgia has one of the best wins in the country by having a loss to Alabama. So
They also did beat Clemson, but yeah, I think there's probably enough.
it's way too early in the season. Sorry to
Right.
get a one-loss
Yeah.
team up there.
Well, I think I was going to say it's a little too earlier in the season to care about this.
Well,
but
for sure.
I think you probably have enough sort of traditional voters still left in that AP poll group that you're going to see them. If you lose, you have to drop. Like that's, it's a little bit old thinking, but also you did lose. You had a chance to win. You can't be, I can't remember the name of the guy on SEC Network, Peter something. Peter
Burns.
You can't be a Peter Burns, and this is such a good win for Alabama that they get credit for 2 wins. And boy, Georgia fought so hard. You have to give them credit for a win. So really, this is 3. This one game, 3 wins. Like you're going to have real slappies kind of putting forth that kind of thinking. I think it's fair to not punish Georgia too much for a close loss, assuming it really was close and they just kind of had a slow start. Again, I didn't see the game, so I don't know quite what to chalk that up to.
I mean, is it,
Bootzilla says, polls don't matter, just win the Big Ten. And with the way that the playoff is set up, if you win the Big Ten, realistically, if you're 11-1 in the Big Ten championship, you're not going to be lower than the 2 seed.
Right.
Because by winning the Big Ten, you're going to have wins over some combination of Oregon, Penn State, Michigan.
I would say the only possibility is like Utah going undefeated or Miami going undefeated.
Yeah, Miami darn near
right
went defeated last night. I mean,
in terms of if Ohio State is 12-1, like if they have a loss,
yeah.
Other than that, like that team is going to be number 2 in the nation.
Super chat from Goldfish. Biggest opportunity to improve the defense is in scheme, execution, or personnel.
I think execution, because there are missed tackles, and if now there are some questionable scheming things at time where it's like, well, why did you do that? But those are just here and there. Whereas like the tackling can happen at any point. I think Jim Knowles again does a good job with the adjusting. I don't know how you could dispute that. The tackling, I think the execution, tackling, beating your blockers, like all of these things with the pass rush, maybe you can help them out more, but also they want those 4 guys to win their one-on-one matchups.
Yeah.
So if you do that, if you execute that, then everything is the better for it. But if they can't, then it comes to scheme and scheming some stuff up. I think they did some different things. Like I said, the 5 down linemen, they run in a bare front out there at times. So they're trying different things and not hanging their one linebacker out to dry in the box with nobody else around them.
Deborah Ann wants to know if I have the cot of shame. Does Tony have the cone of shame? Only when he gets some kind of a minor surgery and to keep him from licking his sutures. That's what we have to.
You had an ice cream cone of shame today.
There was no shame. That was an ice cream cone of triumph.
I did want to. I was almost going to get the ice cream nachos at the MSU dairy store. The ice cream nachos being a scoop or 2 of ice cream and triangle waffle cones, pieces of waffle cone shaped triangles. I just instead got a cup of some brownie type of ice cream. It was very good.
I will. Speaking of waffle cone being kind of cut up into triangles, have you had deconstructed cannoli before?
No, I have not.
It is, you basically get your waffle cone stuff, and we are going to go back to football in a second. But you make like a cannoli filling,
okay,
which is it's got some cheese in there and lots of powdered sugar and mini chocolate chips and all that kind of stuff. But then you get waffle cones and you kind of dip into that. It is low key not bad.
Okay.
It is. You're gonna go ahead and make that for yourself at some point, and maybe make it when you have a social gathering, so you don't sit there and eat the entire thing. But man, I could go for a cannoli right now.
Or eat it alone and eat the entire thing.
Then it is the cannoli of shame. That's you will not feel good about yourself or feel good in general if you eat that whole thing in one shot. Jordan B says 1 seed versus 2 seed is a big deal, though. So we're kind of circling back to the college football playoff thing, and that is true. That's worth mentioning here, because if you're the 1 seed, number one, you're going to get the 8-9 winner in the first game, which is going to be probably a much more flawed team in your first game. You also, the biggest piece of that is for the semifinals, you would get consideration in terms of who you're going to play and where you're going to play. The semifinals are in the Orange Bowl and the Cotton Bowl this year. If you are lined up to play Texas in the in the bracket, if you're lined up to play Texas potentially in the semifinal, if they're on your side of the bracket, and you're the number 1 seed, they're going to put you in the Orange Bowl, because you don't want to play Texas in Texas. And if you're going to play Miami potentially in the semifinal, they're not going to put you in the Orange Bowl because you don't want to play Miami in Miami. So there is some significant piece that it's not, the 1 versus the 2 is a much more significant thing than it has been at sometimes in the past, where it's been kind of jersey color for the national championship game. That is a good point. Something we need to shout out there.
And also, I think you want to stay away from the 4, because you're going to get the 5, which could be the 3rd best team and the 2nd best team in the nation.
Yeah. That's definitely a big thing. We do want to make sure we thank our sponsors real quickly. Tailgate USA, sponsors of the Postgame Tailgate. We have been really, really appreciative of having them as a sponsor for the Postgame show for the last few weeks. Tailgate USA, a fully customizable tailgate experience. They do all the work, Tony, all of the work. Is it most of the work? No.
No.
They do everything short of chew your food for you. It is a set up, tear down. You want a bartender? You don't want to make your own drinks? Great, they can do that. You want to, you want to do this at Ohio Stadium? Great. You want to do this on one of the road games? Great. They are in 16 cities around the country, owned by an Ohio State fan. Great idea. This is one of these companies that's like, wish I had thought of that, because tailgating of the college football experience. And we talk all the time about how this is such a short season in the big picture, and how you want to go, you want to really enjoy every game and make the most of every game. This is a great way to do that.
Yeah, and just walking campus and seeing all these, I don't know, 12 by 12 tents just set up. Like, you can get your own tent, trailer, whatever you need, whatever fits your kind of party. However many people, 40 people, 20 people, whatever you think you need. They have something that can fit what you need and what you want. And, could not recommend it enough. Give them a look. Check them out, tailgateusa.net. Support them for supporting us. We would appreciate that.
All right. And, here's one I wanted to punch up real quick. Warpuck says JT got in on the sack game.
He did.
I tweeted out a picture of JT Tuimoloau in the tunnel last week.
Oh, gosh.
He was just very intense. And it just was kind of like, oh, here's a cool picture. I'll put this out. And it just said, how intense is JT Tuimoloau in a tunnel? Like, this intense, basically. And every reply was just, oh, too bad he didn't carry that over to the field. And just,
yeah. I think
pump
that's,
the brakes.
was it Jordan talking about the negativity?
Yeah.
I think that's a lot of it as well, where it is difficult to say something positive on, say, Twitter and not have 20 times that number of comments being like, well, actually, they suck.
Yeah.
It's like, well, I don't know.
That that's exactly borne out by the data at hand, but here we are.
But yes, they are not perfect. They need to get it fixed. They don't need to be perfect to win it all. There has never been a perfect college football champion in the history of time. So you can be flawed and still win it all. Just get hot at the right time, have the right matchups. Ohio State is proof of that in 2014. Michigan is proof of that last year.
Yeah. So we got one from Parker. It might be a good one to end on. Parker wants to know, is Ohio State football going to win the national championship game this year or not?
No, they will not win the national championship game this year because
this season, Tony.
I mean, I think they are as in it. I know they are as in it as anybody else. You look at, Alabama, they beat Georgia. Alabama gave up 30-some points in the second half. Yeah. So, there are flaws there. Jalen Milroe had an interception. Georgia, what about Georgia? Well, I mean, they were down 30-7 in the first half. They have flaws. Oregon, we saw they've almost, they had 2 close games to start the season. Ohio State has everything that you need. They've got, I believe they have the coaching. Chip Kelly is doing very well with this system. They have as much of a quarterback as any recent national champion, like J.J. McCarthy made plays with his legs, and he made some timely plays with his arm, like against Ohio State.
I'm just thinking back, J.J. McCarthy,
Stetson Bennett,
and then Stetson Bennett again.
I don't think there's a huge disparity between those guys. The running backs, they have the offensive line. I don't think you've seen – Georgia didn't have a great offensive line. Last year's Michigan, I don't think it was a great offensive line. Good, very good.
Yep.
I think that's all you need. A great defense. I mean, Georgia had one great defense. Ohio State put a ton of points on them when they played, but that was a very good Ohio State offense. So I think Ohio State has all of the parts. It's just a matter of that Saturday or that Friday, do they play up to their potential? Do they leave it all on the field? Do they make all the proper calls in coaching? Do they make the right tackles? Do they not miss tackles? It's all about execution, game planning, and some of the rock, paper, scissors stuff.
Absolutely, yeah. There's a lot that goes into it. And you think about the fine margins that we're talking about. Does Ohio State win the national championship? I don't know. They have, as you said, as good a chance as anyone in the nation right now, which is all you can really ask this time of year. You can look at some of the teams in the past where you go back to, was it last year? I think that there was a year when Alabama killed Georgia in the regular season. I think it was the Jamison Williams year in the regular season. And then they played in the SEC championship, and Georgia just killed them right back. And what you look like right now is not going to be what ultimately, you're in the conversation right now. No one has won the national championship yet. You're either in the conversation or you're not. Ohio State very much in that conversation. So I think we are caught up on questions. I think we've done
I think it's 1 a.m. Eastern.
Yeah.
So we do, before we go ahead and hit the thumbs up. We would appreciate that. It was before we do get kicked out. So thank you all for tuning in. Again, check out tailgateusa.net. Check out youtube.com/Buckeye Huddle. Subscribe to the channel if you have not yet done so. Hit the bell to be notified. Got another big week coming up of coverage as well. Of course, continue to find us at BuckeyeHuddle.com. Become a premium subscriber. It is the best way to support what we do. We'd appreciate seeing you there. So thank you all for tuning in, and we will talk to you guys later.